Good afternoon. We call the meeting of the Liberty County Board of Commissioners to order. Mr. Brown, has the meeting been properly advertised?
Yes, sir, it has.
Thank you, sir. It's good to see those of you who are here in the audience. Some of you, we realize, have had to come back for the second time. Appreciate your patience in working with us, and especially those of you who are working with Commissioner Jones. We appreciate that. Let us stand down for our prayer and pledge of allegiance. I'll lead us in that. Our Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you now for allowing us to come at this time. We ask that you would give us leadership and guidance as we go through the business of Liberty County. Bless those persons who are here. Bless those persons who are part of our county staff from all levels. We ask you to bless our county-wide, and certainly those who are in the military who are serving in harm's way. And a special blessing among those who serve us right here locally at the 3rd Infantry Division. We ask you now that as we go through this meeting, you would give us clarity, you would give us patience, you would give us insight. We might do us pleasing in thy sight above all. In Jesus Christ's name we do pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty, we are expecting Commissioner Stevens. As far as we know, Commissioner Frazier is unable to be with us this evening. All right, we'll go right into our agenda. If there hadn't been any changes, then the first item on our agenda, item 4A, is finance. Ms. Kim McLaughlin.
So I don't have a report for you. We have not finished closing the month of June, but Mr. Brown thought it was good if I just maybe came and gave a couple of little highlights of what we've got so far.
Always good.
And just to see if you have any questions. But we are still in the process of doing all the year-end accruals that we have to do for both expenses and revenue. So it's going to be at least another month before we get all of that information in and posted.
At this time, I will remind the commissioners if there are any specific questions you may have for Ms. McLaughlin. In the interim, just please feel free to contact her at the office.
Absolutely.
She'll be.
But I do want to share with you a couple of things. So the sales tax, the special purpose local option sales tax that we received in June that represents May proceeds was over $1 million again.
Wow, again?
Over $1 million again. So that's like $252,000 more than what we had budgeted to receive. So in total, to date, for the whole Sales Tax 6 program, we're about $2 million ahead of schedule.
Wow.
So it's fantastic.
Young folks say we can do some things with that.
Yes, sir. T-Splost came in at $941,000, which is $68,000 more than we had budgeted to receive this month. So our sales tax is just doing phenomenal.
Awesome.
General fund revenue, so far, like I said, we have not finished posting all of our accruals. But so far, without even those accruals, we've already achieved 99% of our budgeted revenues. So we've collected over $38 million in total revenues. Our expenses, to date, we've exhausted 93%. So we've got a little bit of a savings. Right now, we're at about $2.7 million to the good. Now, like I said, we are going to make some of those accruals, so I don't expect to end up that high, but I do believe that we'll probably end up contributing about $2 million to fund balance, which is fabulous. $1 million of that has to be attributable to that CARES money that we received. It was over $1 million. But other than that, it's really holding the line on expenses that made us achieve that. You know, only expensing so far about 93% of what we had budgeted. That's 7% of our total budget that we didn't use. So we're doing pretty good. And that's really all I have financially that I can share there. Like I said, we end up holding the month of June open while also running July and August. So we hold the month of June open, and so we've got 2 fiscal years open for the month of July and the month of August, and then we wrap things up and close the month of June and then do all of our reports. So in August, I hope to come before you with more I hope we have everything closed by then, but if not, we'll go ahead and produce a report, knowing that there still might be some tweaks. It never fails. It seems like in August and in September, we still receive invoices and bills for items that pertain to June and prior, and we have to post those back to the fiscal year that they represent. But I do believe we will end up very well for the year.
A question? I yield.
Ms. Kim,
Yes, sir?
you remember a couple of years ago when I asked that the report reflects what department had some savings?
Yes, sir.
Will
When-
this also reflect that, this one the report that you're gonna do now, will it do the same thing?
Yes, so when I come before you in August, I will make sure that you see which departments had how much savings. Now, we just finished processing the last payroll of the year that had 4 days of June in it. We just finished processing that yesterday. So we were working today on getting that part of the accrual in, so all the expenses that I would run today don't have that kind of stuff in it yet.
right.
But yes, I do expect that several of the departments will have savings, and I'll provide that list for you so that you can see by department who saved what. And again, I want to remind you, I love seeing the savings. However, when I see a budget that has, you know, 200,000 or 300,000 in savings,
That's not
I
good.
cringe because
Not good.
basically you over budgeted and we had to set our millage rate too
Right.
high for that. So I like to see the department that comes in with $300 left.
Right, there you go.
Because then you're right on.
Because the taxpayers has
Right.
paid it and they won't get it back.
Right, that's correct.
$300 is a scary place.
It is a scary place. It's a scary place.
Been there, done that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Kim, do we know what a meal is right now?
Last year, it produced, I want to say 1.3 million,
Somewhere in there.
somewhere in there. We don't have the current year digest to know what it will produce this year. But I thought it was somewhere around 1.3.
Somewhere in there.
Countywide. 126, yeah, 1.26. It was close to 1.3 million.
Okay.
That was my question about the digest. Any word on
No, sir.
when we'll have anything? Okay.
No, sir.
Do we then, I mean, spending it is a good thing, but rolling it back is also, because I mean, I happen to be one of those, like some of my other colleagues here that have the city and the county, so, you know, let's don't spend it until we know that we may be able to give some back, but.
Yes, sir.
And all of the, I missed some of the presentations. Where are we at with the industrial authority? They've already presented their, and we know what they're gonna get this year.
They always get 2 mills.
Yeah, theirs is
Theirs is set.
automatic to get to.
Right, but, and that'll be, so you're saying you're gonna be 2.6 million?
If that's what a mill generates. I don't know the exact dollar amount that a mill will generate this year, but my guess is probably somewhere around 2.4. I mean, by the time you take off your exemptions and your uncollectibles, somewhere probably around 2.2, 2.4 million
So
would
they
be my
at-
guess.
if that's true, they'll be at 4.8 unexpected revenue at 100% collection.
What does the hospital get, Ms. Kim? Millage rate.
Are they at 3 point,
I forgot.
I don't remember off the top.
forgotten.
I want to say 3.4 something. I could get that for you and I'll send it to
It's
you.
in the
And,
3.
and here's the reason why I asked that question. Because right now, the EMS is rolling back to the county commissioners. We're gonna have to absorb all of those employees' salary, that building, and, which in the building was always the responsibility of the county commissioners. But now we're gonna have to take on all those employees and their benefits. And I was looking at the millage that they were getting. I mean, because now the county commissioners is gonna, our line item is gonna go up higher and higher. Hospital line item is gonna come down lower. And are they going to be able to allow to keep that same millage that they've been getting all the time? I don't care if it's indigent care or whatever, but their responsibility is going to be reduced. That's just my throw out on that one.
I just wanted to say on the EMS, I don't believe the hospital was paying their entity of their own, the EMS, so therefore the EMS wouldn't be paying out of the millage, the hospital wouldn't be paying those in.
Well, they actually were.
Well, it was
they
all
were
together?
doing- but just like you
Some of
do
their-
solid waste, if you want to say, it was set up a little bit different as a corporation, but it was almost like a fund that you have. The hospital was actually cash flowing the money to it.
Okay.
Getting back the revenues that it would achieve back through billing and everything, and then basically booking as a liability, the uncollectibles,
Okay, so
which was around $750 a year.
750,000, okay.
But remember now, well, if EMS is not a money-making,
No, no,
yeah.
no, but it was part of their total expenses.
That's what I thought.
Was the hospitals?
Well, everything but we bought the ambulance.
The
Right.
transportation, yeah.
So we were looking at what, 100-something thousand
175,000.
for each ambulance.
Right.
All right, well, I know what a mill's at, pretty close. Just keep me posted on that.
Yes, sir.
I've got people asking when they go get tax cut,
Yeah, everybody has kind of a theory about, it's good to roll back and, we increased it last year. And the only thing about rolling the millage rate back is the next year, you might have to go back up. And it's almost better if you hold it steady. So you don't increase it, but you just hold it steady. And so the millage rate won't change, of course, they consider it a tax increase when you do that. But if you hold it steady, then you do actually, you're able to budget a little bit better. And I believe people are able to budget a little bit better because their taxes aren't going up and down, they're staying more even. But again, I completely understand wanting to roll the millage rate back.
the reason I'm mentioning that is you've got, the lion's share of the growth is in the cities. And of course, that's what you get in your ad valorem and all on, so. But anyhow, thank you.
And we're reminded that cities don't have the exemptions that we have to give.
No, sir.
Yeah.
And I live in the city, so I appreciate any rollback.
Well, that's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Something to be said too about having you want to run a board that has I call it the rainy day fund, you call it the non-designated,
Well, as long as we don't build up a fund balance that's exorbitant over, your fund balance policy says to stay between 3 and 7 months worth of operational expenditures in your undesignated and unreserved fund balance. And as long as you're within that window, I think you're conservative and you plan well. Now, if you were to get over that 7 and 8 months, then I would say, you know what, you should roll it back because we don't need to build up the fund to that point.
Right.
So as long as we continue to mirror that policy and follow it, I think we're good.
yeah. And remember, we're going to have those capital requests that are going to pop up.
Yes, sir.
And
This budget that you approved, you identified to use 780,000. I think it's 782 or 786,000 of fund balance to fund those capital things. So it's good that we're going to be adding to fund balance at the end of the year.
Yeah, because there's been a lot of conversation and good conversation about caring for our employees and their welfare. We don't want them working in hot buildings either,
Ooh.
cold buildings either, so.
Yeah, it was difficult a few weeks ago.
Driving raggedy equipment, so let's keep all that in mind as we go forward. But it's good to have a commission that's very thoughtful of the people and very thoughtful about being good stewards of the people's money. That's an asset. I can recall, Commissioner Thrift, you were here, those of you who came on when my first year we were elected, I think we had to have a line of credit
Yeah,
from
we
the
did.
bank
We
because
did. Had
the
to go
fund
borrow
balance has
money.
gotten,
They had used fund balance
Yeah.
from consecutive years
That's right.
to balance the budget, and it
Yeah.
got to the point where
Yeah.
we just.
I don't want to go back there. I don't want to go back there.
How many years we did that? 2 years?
At least, at
2
least
years,
two.
I think it was. That was back in
At least two.
ooh,
We're about to take up
2002.
offering among the commissioners.
When
2006.
Chairman MacGyver.
Tim
first-
Yeah,
McCall.
his first year,
Yeah.
2008.
whatever year. I remember.
No, I- It
2008.
was 2004, no?
Have I been
Or
up in that?
2003, maybe.
Huh?
Yeah.
3 years?
There's a 2 or 3.
I know it was 2
Every year
years.
we came
I think
on.
it was 2 or 3. I can't
Two or
remember,
three.
but yeah.
We may have been elected in 2 and took office in 3,
And
but.
took office in 3. That's what I think happened. Yes,
Let's
you're
just,
correct.
you sign it, don't you? You enjoy it?
Thank you, Commissioner Moore. Thank you, Mr. McGrath.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right.
Yes, just email me or call me if you have any other questions.
Thank you so much. All right.
All right.
Engineering, Mr. Brandon Purcell. Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, he's back.
You usually sit over there. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. I was out last week, regular meeting on last week, and that's why Brandon was here last week.
Okay.
And so, did a great job for us, and so try to get him to do it more often. Anyhow, the drought study we got going on for the ISO review, we're getting really close to wrapping that up. So we've got all the ponds measured, most of the reports are underway and just about finished. So we should have that finished shortly. Islands Highway Box Culvert, we're answering some questions for FEMA on that. So we should have those answered up, and we'll know a little bit more about when we're gonna get that money soon. The Tradeport West EMS building, we've been working on that site, and I think that next month, the architect is gonna try to bring some plans to you so you can see what those look like. We ended up doing some workman's comp, finding some certificates for some of the counties reporting, Becky Street and Olive Street. Now, put on your desk today, this was not included in my report, so I'm not looking for a motion on this tonight unless you guys want to do something. But I'll go ahead and tell you so you have the information, and we can look at it at the next meeting or whenever you want to. For the Becky Street and
Is
Olive
it
Street-
time sensitive at all?
No, sir.
No, sir. Well, Commissioner Gill,
It's Commissioner Giller's time.
we'll lean to,
We good as long as we,
He's the driver.
okay, all right.
So, we received bids. The lowest bid was from Siddle Construction at $90,258.02, which is less than the money that we had set aside, so that was well within budget. So, encourage you to look at those and let me know which way you want to go on that. And if you want to, I'd like to have this on the meeting at least next month so I can go ahead and award the contract to the contractor.
that's fine.
So, take a look at that. Miller Park Fire Station, we've gone over the plans. I think a lot of the emergency staff has plans. They're looking at them, going through them. We're going to get those back from them shortly. We have a few site plan changes we want to make as part of the review, and as soon as we get those, we're trying to have completed plans back on that early September. That's what the goal is between the whole team, the architect, and all the subs on that. The Middle Park Recreation Park improvements. The plans of that are 100% ready. I gave you guys last month a copy of the, I gave you in this proposal a copy of the cost estimate of where that's going to be. I'm ready to go out and get bids for that, and I'll put it in the paper if you want me to go ahead and get the real prices and know where we're going. I think you guys are going to share in some of the costs for that, but if everybody's okay, I'll go ahead and get that in the paper probably next week or maybe week after next before it shows up in the paper, because I might miss the deadline with the invitation.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Stevens.
Mr. Long, earlier we were talking about a price of about
Yes, sir.
$400,000.
Well,
Now we're looking at 1,000,002.
well, the 400,000 didn't have the shelter in it, and so this has a shelter in it. And some of the prices that we had on the 400 they were older prices, and what we did is we went back and updated everything to our current prices, and this is kind of where we're hitting right now. When I saw how much it was compared to the old, I was
You,
shocked too.
okay.
And I hope to goodness that I'm the high bidder.
I hope that this comes out like Yeoman's Road.
Yes, me too.
Okay, remember Yeoman's Road was almost $1 million, and we wound up to
670, right?
675, somewhere along in there.
Yeah.
I don't want to under budget,
Right,
but I'd like to go out and get real prices.
okay. Mr. Chair, also, if this comes out like it is, maybe we have to do a phase
Phase it in.
phase 1 and a phase 2. I don't want to go to a phase 3.
We can
Do a
certainly
phase
do
1 and a phase 2.
Okay.
The oldest park in Liberty County. and the worst-looking one,
Yes, sir, I understand.
okay?
It'll look nice when we're all said and done.
Thank you. With the fire station sitting across the street.
Yes, sir. That's gonna be a nice little, complex or community complex down there.
With a new renovated convenience center sitting in the middle of it.
That's right. It's really gonna look good. So, all right, Yeoman's Road, the contractor's out there working, some curb and gutters down, we're getting ready to get some stone down. So that's progressing well. Now, I'm saying this so that you guys, if you get phone calls or people ask you questions. So we've had several people, since we started this, when we started, we had dirt driveways on a lot of these residents. And what we had in our construction plans is a dustpan driveway where we pave out about 5 feet behind the curb, and it looks like a dustpan. That's what we have in the contract. But a lot of people have gone out and then they've paved right up to the edge of the right-of-way. So, you know, in theory, what I told my inspectors is, we're gonna do what's in our contract, because it's gonna throw us way over budget if we go and we start adding all this extra concrete. And what we're telling the folks is, if you want to, we're replacing what was there before, we're replacing. If there was concrete before, we're replacing with concrete. So if they want a contract with a contractor to pave that little section between the dustpan and where they stop their concrete, that's great, I'm all in favor of it, but I'm trying not to include that in our contract. So if you get that question, that is what I'm trying to tell everybody, because it's a cost control for us. There is one driveway that we are doing a little bit more concrete on. It's a new facility, and the way their driveway comes out to one of our catch basins, the way it's got to get shaped, I can't
Avoid
I
that.
can't take that out. I can't take the chance of letting somebody else do that. I've got to make that work. So there is one driveway we'll be doing a little bit more than the others, but that's just because the way his driveway hits the catch basin.
Okay.
And it's John Hodges' house, so you know.
Okay. That's one of the new ones, right?
It's a new one.
That's what I thought.
But I told him where to stop with his concrete so that I had room to make the transition that I need to make to my catch basin.
Okay.
So that's information for y'all, because I know you guys get questions from people all the time. That way, if somebody says something to you, you know what's going on. Palm Drive and Point South Drive, those are out for bid right now. We should be getting bids on those 2 weeks. Working on the Fleming Road, traffic control, speed hump. Still got to go through the City Hinesville process. Got some exhibits waiting on, some appraisals on the public works improvements. And Recreation Department ADA accessibility, they've already started. I think they're doing Stafford Park right now, some things over there, a few things over there. So, and what we've done is we've coordinated with Jimmy on when he's got events at which park, so that we don't interfere with anything he's got rented out, or we don't cause him any trouble. But that's going well so far. And that's it for me right now.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
Trent, did you tell me the other day that the 2 feet widening on Bill Carter Road was within that price?
Yes,
It was?
I believe so. Yes, sir.
Do you recall how much? I didn't bring that with me. You recall?
I
how
didn't
much?
bring it back either.
Okay.
But I can get it, I can get it again for you.
Was it over $1 million?
No, it was under $1 million.
Mr. Chair, you don't remember, do you?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I
Remember, that's the one he left out and went and brought it back to us?
I remember that. I remember the number.
I just can't remember the number. It was less than $1 million.
And really, I'd like to expedite that project if possible, and probably look at the T-Splosh.
So we could go ahead and put a package together and get it ready to go out for bids and get some numbers on that, if you would like us to.
Do it.
Mr. Stevens, I got a question about your park down there. Mr. Chairman, if you'll,
I will.
I know, wanted to help with this project, but I'm a little concerned, Trent, that your handicap, how many space, I see you got park improvements total, and then you've got baseball areas, but how many handicap spots have you got there? It appears that there's just gonna be maybe 2 spots at the baseball field and 2 at the,
No, the number you're looking at for the handicap, those are ramps. That doesn't necessarily affect the number of handicap parking spaces.
no, that's what I'm looking at. If you've got, I'm looking at one of them there that says handicap sign is 2,
Yes,
okay, and then you've got handicap ramps, and then you've got handicap parking
yes.
space striping 1. So how many,
We already have some handicap spaces out there. So we've got 2 out there. I think we're adding 2 more, which gives us equivalent of 100 parking spaces that's required.
100 parking spaces?
Basically, there is a ratio and there is a guide to figure out how many parking spaces you need in relation to the number of overall parking spaces. And basic rule of thumb is 1 for every 25 parking spaces. So every 25th parking space needs to be a handicap spot. So I think when we're said and done, I got to go back and count them again. That's not a number I keep on my mind. But what we did is we counted all the parking spots and we made sure we had enough parking spaces in there for handicap. And with the existing signs that we have and the new, these are the things that we were looking at trying to do. There should be a set of plans in there, and I can get you another set of plans if you want to look at it.
Well, I went and looked at the ones at James Brown Park. Of course, you know, you've got a number of fields there.
Yes.
And I know that at any given time, you have 350 or 400 vehicles there, and you can figure that at least 30 of those vehicles in there, there's handicap. And we don't have that many spots there. Now, if we're gonna build a place like that,
Well, we can certainly look at converting some to handicap. mean,
I think,
that's really
I
not a
think we
problem.
need to, I mean, they'll have to be wider. And we need to, let's look at that beforehand. And on your entrance road improvements, I don't know if y'all have looked at it, but your entrance road improvements, you've got, you know, your pipe and, all the way up to the top, you've got 8-inch, 6-inch, and the fire hydrant and all, but shouldn't we would be able to take the entrance road improvements out of that? That's gonna service 2 different things, ain't it? It's gonna service the park and the convenience center?
It does. It's our-
So what are we need to differentiate what may come out of recreation and what may come out of something different. I can understand we can do the whole park, but we've got 2 different apples there. You've also got the decel lane.
Yes.
And we've got T-Splosh.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I know it may be Kim's going, well, she's already gone. She's gonna be the one deciding on it, but you just got 3 different things along with the park. I understand we ought to have the park contained in a bid, and then if you wanna bid them all together too, I just don't wanna have,
Commissioner Walden, you're right on track with that. And one of the reasons we did break this down was so that it gave us the opportunity to look at funding sources differently, so that we knew what prices went with what sections. So we broke it out just for the same reasons that you're asking for.
so we're still looking at the dollar amount that we talked about earlier, and then these other ones will be added in it, but you're gonna try to still do it as one lump,
Yes, sir, I'm putting it out as one.
one bid?
Yes, sir.
Get a better price.
We'll go back out there when we get that price and sort through those funding sources for you to the max that we can.
Right.
And give you those broken out.
I mean, I don't think we ought to be taking all sales tax if we can use T-Splosh money on it.
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
And
And maybe some solid waste fund money.
Solid waste funding to pay for that road.
Do what?
Use some solid waste funding.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yep, also.
we just, there's two, I've already heard where the pot's at, and we don't even know if the pot.
Spread the wealth.
Well, I just think that we need to divide it up. Now, that's just me.
Now, I will tell you also, one of the prices that we did notice, you know, our last pavilion we built was $222,000. And when I broke down the square foot price and then looked at what we were just receiving on square foot prices for buildings, we were falling way behind on that. So I upped the square foot price on this building by like it's 340-something thousand, isn't that what I have in there? The building was $336,000 is in the pavilion, which is higher than what we had before, just because of the increase in the square footage costs that we're seeing now. So, right off the bat, we got $110,000 add-in, just like that, because of the price of the building.
Same prototype,
Same building,
yeah,
same building,
yeah.
everything. Same grading around it, same thing.
We're gonna change the color on it.
Well, yeah, that works.
Yeah, we change the color.
Mr. Chairman, whenever, I don't know if this is an action item or not, but we were going to come back and then the 1.2 million, you're going to divide it out as to
Come and get
what
real
pot
prices.
it's coming out of? Or is some of it coming out of recreation and then,
We'll
We will.
I mean, we have to
come back.
vote on it all,
We'll
but,
come back and.
right.
Gets to be.
Come back and do
Once we
that.
get the price, I'll go in and search all the, we've already looked, but search back how much is available from those other sources y'all
Right.
talking about, and then bring you back the
How
option.
much, okay, all
Right.
right. Okay.
All right, so we'll be glad to put that out. All right, that's it for me.
All right, sir.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Trent, on your next monthly report, if you can just put one of your bullets on here to talk about the Walthamville road
Walthamville Roads?
acceptance. Yeah,
Yeah, I hadn't got anything back from Larry on that yet.
Yeah.
We probably need to talk to Larry about that.
I
If I
talked
need
to
to
Larry,
give
I
him those
talked to
letters
Larry,
again,
I
I'll
talked
give
to
him the
Larry
letters
every day about it, and he said that that you got everything you need.
That I got everything I need?
That's what he told me. I talked to him. He works out there with me, and that's what he said.
I gave him all the letters he needs to put on city letterhead and get to us.
Yeah, okay. We'll catch him. We'll catch him. I hope he's listening.
He called me today. I didn't get a chance to talk to him, but he called me earlier
He
today.
didn't mention that, though, did he?
No, well, he and I didn't get to talk. He called me in the middle of a meeting and I couldn't answer the phone at the time.
Yeah, but just put it on your report so that
I'll be
we'll.
glad to.
Okay, I appreciate it. Okay.
And Commissioner Gay, you want us to put the August Street and Baker Street on the August?
The regular,
Yeah.
the regular meeting.
Okay.
The-
The Walterville Roads, you want it on a regular meeting or you want it in mid-month?
No, the Walthamville Road, it'll be on the,
It's on my-
on the
my
mid-month
regular
meeting, on your report. But the Olive Street and, Baker Street, we're gonna do that in,
First
It's
Tuesday.
a regular meeting.
yeah, first meeting in August. Okay?
I'm good with that.
Okay,
All right.
All right.
thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. LCPC. Oh, Ms. Sanchez coming first.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
So I'm here to present the Alder Grove subdivision preliminary plat for phases 1 and 2. This was zoned as a PUD under the name Jeffers Tract. It's on Isle of Wight Road. The developer is Dryden Enterprises. MESAC Engineering designed the project. It is a total of 138 lots for single-family dwellings on 49.15 acres. This is the vicinity map. Isle of Wight is here, Oglethorpe, 95, and the entire holdings of Dryden Enterprises is what's outlined in red here. Phases 1 and 2 are what below the green line. This is, a future phase is up in the northern part of the property. This was a conceptual plan for the Jeffers Tract PUD zoning. Isle of Wight here again, and phase 1 and 2 is basically this lower area right here. So getting into more specifics of the overall plan, I've outlined phase 1 in orange. There are 58 lots in phase 1, and there are 80 lots in phase 2. Phase 1 does wrap around phase 2 because there's drainage in here that they're going to be putting in order to serve phase 1, and it will serve phase 2 as well. Some other things to note about this plat. There are 2 common areas right at the entrance. Those were required to be left open for site distance to have adequate sight distance as they exit onto Isle of Wight Road. These are just over 6,000 square feet each. There's another one here that's just under 15,000 square feet and it's common area that will be dedicated to the HOA. The blue areas are the 5 drainage ponds. They total about 10.6 acres. And there is a pump station tract here. The water and sewer will be served by the city of Midway, so that tract will be dedicated to the city. And then there is a secondary emergency access provided here. This is Jane Street. It has a 40-foot right-of-way, not the standard 60, and what's provided here is also a 40-foot right-of-way.
And that's permissible?
The plans were reviewed and approved by Trent Long. It's a secondary exit. It's not meant for full-time use of the
I
residents.
understand, I'm just thinking,
Yes.
that we talked last meeting about long-term, is that going to be something that we have to live with? Who's the guru on,
Trent's actually here. Trent, the normal right-of-way we get for paving of a road, though, is we're gonna require at least 60 feet.
Yes, we normally do 60, the road that's there now is 40.
There's no utilities being installed in the right of way. That's why we kept it at 40, but we could explore it and get the other side.
for the sake of consistency, I wish you would, sir. Yeah, yeah, and long-term planning, I hear Commissioner Walden in my ear, talking about the, years from now, when that road is no longer a secondary, but becomes another primary, or could become. If you will, Mr. Sack, thank you.
Also on that right there, Mr. Chairman, are you the engineer on it, Marcus? So, on the secondary road,
Can you come to the mic,
it'll be probably,
Chairman?
it'll
You can come
probably
to the mic.
be that'll be trucks going in and out, or will that be for the residents? Is that gonna be for construction, or?
It's only gonna be for emergency right now. We're actually gonna put a gate up, and give the keys over to emergency personnel. That's the plan. We'll kind of work through that as we go. The main reason, well, the 2 reasons. The PUD was approved with the one entrance that we discussed way back when.
I remember.
The ordinance clearly states that a secondary entrance is required in an attempt to meet the ordinance without having to do a variance. We're putting this emergency access there. Trent also made a great point that that road has come up in a lot of different discussions for paving, and it had some nuances to it that made it difficult. So in doing this and some other things that we're going to do on Phase 3, we're hopeful that will help that road be pavable in the future. Did that answer your question? That was a long answer to it.
Well, my question was gonna be, when and if y'all use it, the construction or whatever, it'll be maintained by who? I mean, when the road gets beat out, that'll be Mr. Dryden's bunch that'll grade it back to get it to spec, or will that be left up to us?
Once construction's over,
Right.
so right now, we're showing just a small, do we have a zoom in on that? I don't guess we do. We're just kind of showing a stub out going in that direction.
Okay, I got you.
But it would probably be a good idea to at least do GAB all the way to the property line to where the gate is.
I got you.
But it would be, that right-of-way will be dedicated to the county once it's turned over final plat.
It will be dedicated to the county, but it's gonna be unpaved.
That last portion, that connection portion will be unpaved, right? Yes, sir. The entirety of that street is unpaved, I believe.
Let me say this to the board. We don't need another issue like what we have in in Midway. Now, Mr. Chairman, you're aware of what I'm talking about, where the road is supposed to be just a utility easement and going down,
Which one?
I'll let you call the name. The Martin property.
Oh,
We don't need another issue like that one, okay?
yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely.
No.
So we did this, hoping that we were helping the county. Looks like we're causing some issues in our attempt to do that. So we're
You're
happy.
not causing an issue, you cause us to think
Yeah, yeah.
ahead. So you say the road's gonna be, you're gonna it's gonna be gated closed, so I understand that. But that's Jane Street you called it, so that's a road that's been there, obviously, it's unpaved, it's a dirt road, okay? All right, I'm with that, but my thing is, if it should in the future become another exit, which would be a good thing for that neighborhood, you know, then we needed to meet county specs so that we could
Yep.
do what we have to do. So hope that's not causing you too much pain and consternation, my friend.
It's pretty easy for me to change the lines on that piece of paper, you know, Mr. Dryden.
okay.
Have to pay for it. But, yeah, it's really not that easy
Okay.
to change the lines either at this
Yeah.
point. But we'll look at making it wider.
Okay.
Or is it the will of the board to pave it as well to the property line?
Where's my engineer?
That would be best for us in the long run. That will end up solving some of these issues that you worked on.
I hear you.
Question? Traffic conditions, traffic situations, traffic considerations are all?
We'll still live in.
Yeah.
I mean, from the entrance off Isle of Wight Road, which I live on the island, that road is already traffic bound now, and it's stuck up there at the end of the road, there, in front of the liquor store and the trash can.
So-
We get lined up in,
Yeah.
lined up out, especially during
Yeah.
shift change times, and people fly down that road. Is there gonna be a stop sign, or is it gonna be
Yeah.
an off exit right there?
So if you will, this is not a public session at this point, but I will say this, the discussions you're making, we had all that,
The rezoning.
yeah, several months ago. So we kind of went through what you're talking about. So if you want to talk to Mr. Sack after the meeting, that'd be fine, or Mr. Long, that's quite all right. But those same things that you brought up, we went through all that when this first came before, so, yeah. Point well taken, point well taken.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more question. What was the width that you already have drawn?
We match the existing right-of-way at 40.
The existing is 40.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Well, hold on then. So that whole road is on that 40?
Correct.
That's about
It's
right.
already 40?
And all of James Street is just.
Yeah, all of the existing right-of-way is 40, so we matched existing right-of-way at 40.
Whoa, 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 whoa. You said Jane Street is 40?
40 with curb and gutter, right?
40.
Is it curb and gutter, or is it? Our road is curb. That's what I thought, yeah, that's the reason it's 40.
Okay.
So, I'll say this, all the roads inside the subdivision are 60. They all have a curb and gutter, they're all paved.
Okay.
The section we're talking about is this little piece of James
We
Street.
understand.
So what Marcus was saying is he's gonna look at trying to go ahead and get it to 60. Go ahead and talk to Dryden about paving that section. We'll have the 60 anyway.
I understand.
But right now it's, excuse me,
It is just shown that way.
As-
it's shown as 40?
As shown, it's 40.
Okay, because I would think if you're going to widen it, then you're going to take some away from
We would
those
shift
properties
the
that.
lots around.
Okay, all right, yeah. Shift them around.
But I just want to be fair to you guys.
Yeah.
You know, if Jane Street is on that 40, and certainly if we paved it now, you said we could pave it curb and gutter with,
When we did our paving plans for James Street,
Uh-huh.
we were doing it within a 40-foot right.
were you? That kind of
We
changes my,
weren't going back and asking for more right away down James Street. What stopped James Street was being able to get a drainage outlet on the other end to get James Street to drain, or to drain it, and kind of working with them on trying to make sure we have some opportunities to provide that ability.
okay, okay.
Well, that
But
kind
still,
of changes.
yeah, that's
Thought
kind of changed the
pattern
thought
of
pattern too.
having to-
Yeah, yeah.
Go to 60.
Yeah, when Jane was 40, it could be curbed and gutted and paved.
60 and 40, then you meet some requirements, then it kind of puts to bed the, you know, the piece like we have on the
Okay,
drive.
okay, all right,
Originally for utilities,
all right,
causes a lot of heartache.
all right. We'll still ask you to consider that, sir.
Will, sir.
I do have a few more slides. So the development standards for this subdivision are, they have 4 different lot types. They range in a minimum lot size from 4,500 to 8,000 square feet. The widths, you can see, range from 40 to 80, and the rear setbacks are range 50 to 20. All the lots have to meet the standards that are listed below, with the minimum lot depth, of 80 feet, front setback of 15, side setback of 5, but a minimum side separation between buildings of 14 feet, which of course means if one building is set back 5 from its property line, the next building has to be set back 9 feet in order to get the 14 feet between them. So this is a layout of where those lot types are scattered or how they're developed around the subdivision. The green ones along the main road, which is what you want the larger lots there, so you have fewer driveways of people backing in and out of on this road, which will continue into the future phase. And you have the patio lots down here, you have the smaller single-family lots here, and you have 4 of the executive lots at 8,000 square feet. This is kind of, gives you just a little bit more of a zoom in of the features that I've just presented, although I've outlined the lot types as opposed to color them in. And it probably doesn't really show too much better, but there is the apron that Marcus was talking about putting in on that emergency access right there. And this is the other half of the preliminary plat. Again, colored in the pump station lot there, the emergency secondary access there. Line charts, this is part of the official preliminary plat, which you can't read because it's too small. So the dedications to the county will include 1.14 miles of streets. Road A is that main one that will continue in to the future phase. Road 2 is the one that dips down below on the southern side of the property. That too will intersect with A and continue into the future phase. Road C is the middle road, and then Road D will continue in on to the future phase and the emergency access, which is 115 feet. There are drainage easements for the functional maintenance of those 4 drainage ponds, and culverts and flumes are dedicated to the county, as is the stormwater system within the streets rights-of-way, which includes the curb inlets and culverts and other infrastructure within the right-of-way. As mentioned, the city of Midway will be providing the water and sewer systems, and those are the dedications that will be made to the city of Midway, including that one pump station tract of 5,800 square feet. And the dedications to the HOA include those 3 green space tracts of 0.63 acres and the detention ponds of over 10.5 acres. This was before the Planning Commission, I think it was last month or 2 months ago, and they recommended approval with standard conditions for the preliminary plat of Alder Grove subdivision phases 1 and 2. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any more.
This your district, sir?
Yeah, well, I hear all the stuff about dedication to the county, dedication to the county. It kind of bothers me just a little bit, because I know in one district, I sent an email to Commissioner Jones the other day about another issue down there where it was dedicated to the county, and they caught the devil trying to get back in to fix what was that, about a 36-inch pipe, I think it was, a while back. And that's why I'm saying I'm concerned about all this dedication to the county. I think the POA did go back in and fix it. I think, Mr. Long, after some pressure was applied, and I don't have a problem applying the pressure to anyone, because I can't see taxpayers' money going out to repair something like that. I call it private property. The streets out there that I sent the email to Commissioner Jones with right now is already, the streets are falling apart. And I'm just saying that to let everybody know, I'm not against building, but if we're gonna build it, we need to build it right. Not where that in 2 years from now, they're gone and it comes back to the county.
Point well taken, sir. Now, this is the Alder Grove subdivision preliminary plats, phase 1 and 2, is up for approval from the county.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we go ahead and accept that.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second been made. I think all the comments have been heard. Once again, to echo what Commissioner Stevens said, we appreciate Mr. Dryden, Marcus, and your help with investing in unincorporated Liberty County, and others too have done that. We really appreciate that. And we just ask that you do it well, to the best of your ability, so that all of us at the end of the day are proud of what we do.
Mr. Chairman, before we vote on this, and there was discussion that we had about the road, and I wanted to talk to Commissioner Stevens about that, but I'm assuming that that road would be open for, the city of Midway's gonna provide the water, but now fire protection will be provided by us because they de-annexed that, correct?
Right.
So that road, Jane Lane, we'll be able to access that would, in case the main road is, the entrance is in bad shape, we'll be able to come through that road, Marcus, with a tanker truck then, or whatever needs to be. Okay. Okay.
All right.
Thank you. That's all I have,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
All in favor, please raise your right hand to approve. Those opposed? All right. Look forward to it, Marcus. Mr. Gandhi, how are you?
All right, how you doing?
Good.
Good.
All right, so I am bringing back a motion that y'all tabled at the regular meeting earlier this month, so I'll just run back through what we're doing here. This is the proposed special exception, 2021-31 LC for Mr. David Cheney. He is the owner of this property, and he has submitted a request for a special exception to live temporarily for no more than 1 year in a motor coach on his property at 97 East First Street. That property is further described as parcel 281B45, and it is zoned R2 for single and two-family residential. It is located in District 4. Just a note that y'all did vote to table this item until this meeting for further consideration. So again, here's one picture, and I've got some others later as well, of the property. There's the motor coach in question, and it is hooked into power and such right there. This is the freestanding accessory building garage that I will show you on the map. So we are on Isle of Wight Road here, coming all the way down towards the end, and of course this is First Street running along the water here. Just showing you this is zoned R2, as is everything else around it. So here is a close-up of the property. As I mentioned, there is the accessory building, the detached garage, just to orient yourself. Is the road. This is about where the motor coach is sitting, like right about here. There used to be a home here, and it was mostly destroyed by hurricane earlier, and then I believe Mr. Cheney got clearance to get rid of the rest of it, but he can talk about that when he's up here. Let's see here. Oh, and just to clarify, again, R2 zoning, and actually none of our residential zonings allow for people to live in a camper or motor coach on an individual lot like that. We do, of course, have that, RV park ordinance we passed a little bit ago, but R2 zoning does not allow for that typically, so that's the point of our special exception. So, narrative. I, David Cheney, very respectfully request a special exception for my motor coach located on my property in Midway. This request is being submitted for a period not to exceed 1 year. I am a 100% disabled veteran and have encountered significant financial hardship during the last few years because of Hurricane Matthew and Hurricane Irma. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic has completely stopped any progress within the SBA Disaster Assistance Office. I have an approved SBA disaster assistance loan, yet I am unable to collect these monies to begin construction because of the COVID-19 backlog. Also, the unprecedented increase in lumber prices has delayed the distribution of my funds as per my case manager at the SBA. So another picture a little bit closer up. This is the rubble of the demolished house, which is still on the property. There is the motor coach, as I mentioned, and you can see a bit of the garage there as well. And then just another angle on the property. You can see the water is right over this way, and this is where the motor coach is sitting. So our planning commission considered this at their June meeting and recommended approval for the special exception. And again, y'all voted to table that and reconsider it at this meeting. So if y'all have any other questions for me?
I had a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman. The rubble, so there's no home on it now?
There is no home on that property right now, no, ma'am.
So it was completely destroyed, I guess, with those two hurricanes? And the only thing that's standing is the garage?
To my understanding, Mr. Cheney, it was mostly demolished by the hurricane, but Mr. Cheney got clearance to fully demolish it because it was kind of like rubble at that point. He can probably answer that question a little better.
I was just wondering about the rubble. A lot of folks would be complaining about, or the county getting called about that trash being piled up like that.
Yes, we
I
have.
know that's not why we're here tonight about it, but
Yes, ma'am. That has been the concern of one or two people that have called, so.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
how are you, Mr. Gandhi?
Doing all right, how you doing?
Good. What measuring stick, I guess, or guidelines do you usually use when you decide on approval, on a variance, or denial?
So this is a specific sort of case because this is not a variance, it's not a conditional use, this is a different category of special exception, and we actually don't have anything outlined in the ordinance for criteria, basically, for this. This is kind of, and to that note, I should mention that our staff did not make a recommendation for it because we had no criteria to consider for you. The planning commission, however, the commissioners made this just based on, judgment call, essentially. So that's where the recommendation came from. But no, we have no specific written criteria for you to fall back on like we do with the conditional use.
And have you been contacted by any of the residents from this community for or against?
I have personally received, I think, calls from 3 different neighbors who were against the idea. I believe some of the folks here in the commission have received other notes from as well.
Yes, I guess that being the district that I represent, I've gotten several phone calls, several emails. I've met Mr. Cheney recently, and I understand the hardship part of his request for the continuation. The continuation is a recommendation for a year.
Yes, sir. We're giving it that, that is part of the recommendation essentially, is that this would last only a year. And then at that point, if he wanted to continue living in a motor coach, he would have to come back here and do the same process for you, would be the idea.
So the year is for him living in the RV.
Yes, sir.
So that's the only thing that the year time limit pertains to?
Yeah, it's not related to that rubble or anything like that. It's literally just how long he can live in that RV as his primary residence. And if he were to build another primary residence there and keep the RV on the property, he would be able to do that for longer than that too. That's just for him to utilize the RV as the primary residence for the property.
All right, so it has nothing to do with the length of time that he has to rebuild his property, the home that was destroyed. This is just for the usage of the RV.
Yes, sir, technically, but I mean, if he wanted to avoid having to do this special exception again in a year, he would have to build some sort of new home, like, on-site home in that year.
And I'm just, well, of course, everyone knows that I'm new to the board, so the last 6 months I've just recently got involved with this project, the folks that have been contacting me, but I understand that it has been going on prior to this request. Have we granted a special request for this condition before?
No, sir. He's been living in the RV for some time. The only reason this came before us is because it was reported to your inspector's office and kind of end up having to go through the motions here. So, no, he's been in there for a little bit. He can probably tell you exactly how long, but.
I think that's the better answer to your very first question. If I may paraphrase it, what all started this? That was the RV being on his property, and the neighbors complained, and Mr. Cheney did not have permission or a permit.
A special permit.
Yes, there was no permit for him to place the RV there. So that's kind of how it all started.
Okay.
'Cause that's what gave it, what's the word? Attention to the county.
Yeah.
Yeah, then that brought it to magistrate court, and magistrate said, well, if you're gonna need an exception, go to
Yes.
LCPC and the county. So that's kind of how it worked its way back here. But it started because he did not have a permit to have the RV there.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the county's first opportunity to address it.
Yeah, and just to clarify, the county did not grant like a building permit to live in the RV in the first place or anything like that.
Yeah.
Is Mr. Cheney or anyone else going to speak on?
Well, we did that all last time.
Okay.
But Mr. Cheney is here, so, but I only wonder if I may just let him do like a 3-minute, so we don't go on and on.
We don't want to go,
Yeah, 'cause we don't, all this last time, Mr. Cheney, you don't come, and then, sir, you'll come follow. Mr. Cheney is a petitioner.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
I'm David Cheney. I live at 97 East First Street in Midway, or used to anyway. The pile of rubble there is not, it's building materials. The rubble went to the county dump. There's not any trash or anything like that. That's foundational concrete and everything else like that. That is going to be used to construct something known as a living shoreline. The living shoreline is something I've spent a considerable amount of money, and it is a way to move forward so you don't have to put bulkheads. It is the best practices as far as anything goes in the U.S. I mean, that's the standard now, and it's being done in a lot of places. I've already paid up to $15,000 to keep that right there, building products. That will be used to be placed in front of the home on the riverside, and it will be reseeded with spartina grass, and they'll also redo it with oyster shells. And it's just the best way after checking to go. That's what that's about right there. And this has gone on way too long.
We would
there's
agree.
no doubt about it.
We would agree.
It's gone on way too long. This is the plans that I received. I have plans, and I also had a building permit for another property down here already, and already paid the $540 or whatever to the county for that building permit. I ran into deals with the SBA, which is very slow. The SBA lady said they have a backlog of 18 million people. I just spoke to the lady yesterday. This is very close to being done. If this is not done, I'm not going to come before this board again. But that pile of rubble there is clean trash, and it's going to be used to construct what is the bulkhead in front of the property that was destroyed during Matthew and Irma. And hurricane, and the last thing is COVID has been extremely disruptive into the whole process. I think any of y'all can ride by on 84 out here. Y'all look at the Chevrolet place. Y'all see any trucks on the lot? You see any trucks on the lots at the Ford place? It has disrupted this country. It's disrupted the world, and it's certainly disrupted me. And it's just absolutely, I was at the end of my rope before we got started with COVID down here. I don't want to be here living in that motor coach any longer, but that's about the only thing I can do at this point. And I think that we'll see construction very soon, possibly as early as a month. And I indulge y'all to positively consider this. I would appreciate it, and it will be of great assistance to me. This thing has a sewer from my old home, and it also has a electricity. I keep the lot in impeccable condition. The lot grass was cut yesterday. There's a just on the other side of this lot over here. There's a mobile homeless park there. There's just nobody's in there. So, thank you very much.
Thank
for
you,
your
Mr.
time.
Cheney.
I appreciate it. And I'll
Mr.
answer
Chairman,
any questions.
Could I ask Mr. Cheney a question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Ms. Cheney, you said that the bulkhead was this, the debris is going to be used to restore the bulkhead. That was destroyed during the storm?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the adjacent property, what do they have? Now, you said that pile of debris, the rubble, is the best thing in the world for restoring. So did it only just destroy the shoreline at your property? What happened on either side? I mean, and do these people have that same kind of, I don't need that.
This is I have a plan.
No, what you said that the bulkhead was destroyed from the storm, and that pile of rubble is the best thing in the world for restoring it. And I'm saying if the storm comes in and destroy the shoreline, did it just do it at your property, or did it do it along the whole?
Primarily my property.
Just yours? It just,
Because of the way, there is a dock. The only thing that's on the lot to my right as we're facing it is a dock out there.
Okay.
And access to get there. And then on the other side, that house has now been elevated 12 feet above the level, and that's where that house
okay.
stands at this point.
And one other question now, and I just Googled this. Matthew was in 2016 and Irma was in 2017.
Yes, sir.
And your letter said that, you were suffering from both storms. Which one, did the damage? They both did, or did the?
Hurricane Matthew beat me to a pulp. We didn't have power for 11 days out on Isle of Wight after
Okay.
Hurricane Matthew. Hurricane Matthew was a lot more destructive. However, with Hurricane Irma, everything was fine. It wasn't that windy. But all of a sudden, we got a high tide and then the surge coming in. I had 3 feet of water in my house.
Okay.
3 full feet of water. I mean, I'm walking around and have video of this, and which brings up the point that the insurance company just wrote a letter to the insurance commissioner that said that there was only 7. I'm going to go show them when we go to federal district court that it wasn't 7 inches, it was 37 inches.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I'm exasperated, but I've dealt with this thing for a long time, and it's gone on way too long.
Okay.
I went out of the area for quite a while before I came back, and I thought it was going to be a done deal, and I had a building permit.
Thanks, you've answered my question. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Cheney.
Yes, sir.
Chairman, sir, how long have you been living in the mobile RV at this time?
I think that, well, Frank said I'd been there since the 4th of July 2 years ago. I'm not disputing what you're saying at all, Frank. But I think that's what this gets down to is that I know I've been there too long. That's why I'm asking for a special exception. I mean, this is an unusual event that we're going through with COVID. It's been, I've been through 2 hurricanes and 4 major operations since I've lived in this house. And I'm about dancing as hard as I can dance. I mean, and all I'm trying is to a little bit longer. If you want to get down to the basis on this thing, I don't think I would have had a problem if I hadn't staked out my lines. I've had 3 different surveyors come in here and survey this property. And my neighbor seems to think that I'm on his line. Well, he needs to speak with the surveyors. Because all I'm doing is exactly what they say.
Don't take us back all through your,
Yes, sir. I'm
discrepancy
sorry.
with your
Any
neighbor.
other questions may I answer?
Thank you, Mr. Cheney.
Mr. Chairman?
thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Frank, state your full name when you come to the podium, please, sir.
My name is Frank Verselle. It's spelled V-E-R-S-E-L-E. It was misspelled in the paper, so I want to make a clarification on that. I am also a vaccinated, disabled veteran, got proof right here. And I'm also proud to say that I'm a graduate of the Liberty County Sheriff's Department Citizens Academy. Congratulations, Sheriff. I've got a statement from Mr. Reggie Woods, who is the immediate property owner. I'm an adjacent property owner within the 200 feet that's called for by the regulation. Mr. Jones, did you receive his message today?
I did, but I spoke with him personally, but I didn't get a chance to read the email.
Well, I have it here, with your permission, so everybody here can hear what he's got to say.
We just need to be concise, sir, as much as we can. sir.
It's a printed statement, and you've heard mine already.
All right, sir. Then we'll.
On behalf of Mr. Reggie Woods, Mr. Maxie Jones, unfortunately, I'm on vacation, out of state, and cannot make the meeting. Thus, I would like my letter to be read by Mr. Frank Verselle, who will be speaking on behalf of our neighbors. If for some reason Mr. Verselle cannot make it to the meeting, I would like you to read my letter to the chairman and other commissioners. Thank you. Below is my revised letter from the first meeting. I'm writing in regards to David Cheney's request for a special exception to extend staying in his camper for another year in the Isle of Wight community. His camper has already been there for 2 years. This will set a precedent for everyone to get a variance to an ordinance to stay in campers all over Isle of Wight. I am his immediate neighbor, and I am against this special exception. He explains, his attempt to sue the insurance company and possibly FEMA is unreasonable to expect a big payday from a house that has no interior walls, some ceiling torn out, and all carpet removed from the house. In addition, his house is very old, was not even built close to code back in the 70s. After Hurricane Irma flooded Davis' house, he had his house torn down before he received a claim from the insurance company after he received a partial claim from FEMA flood insurance. Tearing the house down made the situation look dire, but who tears a house down before settling claims? That's how this situation got to this point. With his ongoing litigation, breaking ground on a new house within a year seems impossible. He will likely need another special exception. I think you brought that point up, sir. Is he building an apartment over his garage? The Planning Commission Board approved a special exception based on the premise that he would build an apartment over the garage on my property, speaking for Mr. Reggie Woods. I saw the video of the meeting, so this cannot be disputed. They approved this special exception by inadvertent error of judgment. The corner eave of the garage is on my property. The structure cannot and will not pass code to be a two-story. If he builds a two-story apartment garage in another place on his property, he will very likely not have it completed within a year because of ongoing litigation. In closing, David has the option to stay in a long-term RV park. I have my own statement, sir, that you missed last time, but the rest of the board heard. I don't think it's necessary to repeat it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Jones, you've heard the recommendation from LCPC, and I remind you that as a commissioner, we can either accept their recommendation or the commission has the authority to change the recommendation or deny the recommendation. So all those are at our discretion. We can make a totally different recommendation, accept what they've offered, or deny what they've offered.
Like I mentioned, I've spoken with several of the residents of the community that have called me. Most of the majority of the calls were in opposition of the variance. And I listened to both sides. I've spoken with Mr. Cheney also, and I understand both sides. The year that he is requesting, I think that I would be willing to allow the variance to go forward, but not for a year. If we could change that to 6 months, maybe give a 6 months leeway, and with the condition that if we do not see progress in 6 months, if we don't see the house being built or whatever Mr. Cheney plans on doing with the property, that we will not extend the variance anymore. I think a year is too long because of what we have been here before, obviously, the time that has been taken already, but I would be willing to go along with a 6 month.
Okay, so the first thing is, yes, if you did set a new time limit like that, just to let you all know, Mr. Zeckman would be responsible for going out there and doing that inspection in 6 months, reporting back to y'all about it. And then secondly, yes, you can change the time limit. If you'd like to set when you make the motion, you can set a special condition that it be 6 months instead of 1 year.
Okay. And the reason I do this, Mr. Chairman and fellow commissioners, because like I said, the majority of the comments, concerns that I've got have been against. You know, nobody really wants, and they have a big issue about the RV park. We just recently had submission turned down because someone was wanting to put out an RV trailer park. And I got a lot of calls and opposition about that. They seem to be set against the mobile homes, trailers, and I guess it has a stigma that comes with it that the residents really are trying to get away from in their community. Mr. Cheney, I understand his circumstances, and I tried to look at things with compassion on one hand, and then I understand at the same time the neighbors and their property rights. So trying to respect both sides, I'm stuck in the middle either way it go. I guess damn if I do, damn if I don't.
Right.
So in order to try to, I guess, meet both sides, both ways in the middle, I would like to, under the special condition, I would recommend that we allow the variance that Mr. Cheney has requested, but not for a year. We would give him a 6-month variance extension, and if at that time we go back and revisit, if we don't see any progress, that we won't be granting any more extensions. But we have to see progress that he is either building or what his actual, but we need to see something physical before we would revisit extending it anymore. So my recommendation is for 6 months instead of a year on the request by Mr. Cheney.
But that recommendation needs to find itself into a motion, sir.
All right, sir, and I make the motion that we move forward with the special condition and accepting the variance,
Special exception.
special exception as submitted by Mr. Cheney for a period of 6 months.
Yes, sir.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. Mr. Brown, do we need to be as specific as to put a date on that, or will it just be from this date?
We've looked forward, and I've made a note to go ahead and signal Mr. Zeckman and talk to Jeff about the 15th of December.
Okay.
Be it.
Okay. All right. But we'll just make sure we let Mr. Cheney know that. All right.
Commissioner Jones, Commissioner Jones,
Yes, sir.
I just got, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Cheney, you shake your head. Is your mobile home movable?
RV.
Okay. Okay, that's good, that's good, that's good. What I'm saying, Commissioner Jones, I don't want to see a change that the mobile home is heading east on the parking lot there, and next week is heading west. That's not a change, and that's not a, okay, I'm just want to make sure, because some people go out and move things around and make it look like it's doing something.
Yes. And I have a question, Mr. Jones, and I'm still this valuable pile of rubble. That's not gonna be part of the new structure, the new living quarters or anything. I mean, if it's so valuable and he's gonna use it to shore up the shoreline, he could do something with that now, couldn't he? I mean, if, instead of it just being piled up here.
Right.
I mean, he could go down there tomorrow and put it wherever it's gonna be. That has nothing to do with the new living quarters 6 months from now. I mean, that could be put in motion now. It's just standing there. And, since some of the people had complained about that, I mean, it's there. And if he's keeping it there for that purpose, I don't think that there's much other than time and effort and some money for some construction equipment to put it in that permanent place where it could serve that purpose. I mean, that would be movement that toward, your motion, but it could also, it could show that, he's keeping it for that reason. He could go ahead and do that first thing in the morning. But, I mean, maybe not that quick, but if that's what he's gonna use it for, what's the holdup on that? That's not the, whatever it is that he's waiting on from whoever. I mean, that could be done, and that'd be one thing checked off, and that would be movement during this 6-month period.
And Mr.
I have to go through a state permit that's been done by the engineer that has drawn up for the living shoreline. And that's the reason that pile of construction material there has no refuse in it. It is just is gonna be used when the actual construction, and it is a construction for the living shoreline. It's also gonna be used, there's a swimming pool on this property that was severely damaged from the engineers that have worked on this project.
So you're waiting on the permit to put the rubble in there, so that could go on and on and on until you, you don't think so?
It'll be, it's been doing the engineer is a guy named Tom Havens, who's also speaking at the Georgia Convention Center down here for the state of Georgia's convention here for coastal environmental purposes. He's the one that has drawn up the plans. He's the one that's ready to go forward, and he's the one that's doing all the paperwork through the state of Georgia. Ms. Andrews, Deb Andrews, who's head of the DNR in Brunswick, is very aware of this project. This will be possibly one of the first privately done living shorelines in the state of Georgia. It's a good environmental thing to do, and it's a lot less damaging to the neighboring property.
That's good, but we just don't know how long that could possibly take. It could go
Well,
on and on.
Well, it's gonna happen before the house is built, and I'm expecting the house to be start construction maybe within a month.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank Commissioner Stevens and Commissioner Gillett for pointing that out, because like the condition I made that we see progress, long as, and I guess we'll determine what that progress would be at a later date, but as long as we're seeing progress, then I'll be willing to work with you moving forward, and hopefully that, maybe puts gives a little patience for those that oppose what we are doing, because like I said, it was like 10-1 in opposition. So I've gotten some heated discussions that almost got personal for people not wanting me to accept this approval. So I'm going out on the limb, and like I said, 6 months, if we see some progress at that time, we can move forward. But if we don't, then you know what to expect the next time you come before us. Okay.
all right. All in favor, raise your right hand, please. You opposed? All right. The sooner the better, Mr. Cheney, the sooner the better. Sooner the better.
Okay, thank you, commissioners. That's all we have for us.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You have a good night.
For working with us through that.
Hey, look here, when you coming back? When you coming back? Because I'm going to make sure I'm going to skip that day.
All right, our county attorney, Mr. Davis.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
This is just for informational purposes tonight, but I think everybody has a copy of the memo and a proposed ordinance regulating firearm discharge in the county.
I read it, but I didn't print another copy out of here.
Glanced at it.
Yep, and you'll have a chance to read it before the next meeting, but generally it just regulates the discharge of firearms in the unincorporated areas of the county, and more particularly protects more densely populated areas of the county from unauthorized firearm discharge. And so you'll see the ordinance prohibits firearm discharge in residential and commercial districts in the county, but permits it within agricultural and agricultural residential districts, subject to certain limitations. So even though you can't discharge a firearm in residential and commercial districts, and you can in agricultural and AR districts, you still can't discharge it within 1,000 feet of any residential or business structure, or place of worship, or public gathering. And additionally, you can't discharge it over the property line of another owner's property or on their property without the owner's consent. So those are the prohibitions in a nutshell. And there are several exceptions too, and you'll see those in the ordinance, but these are exceptions that are consistent with state law. If you have a legal justification in the protection of property or person, you can, of course, fire a weapon. Property owned or controlled by the United States or the state of Georgia, including Fort Stewart, is, of course, exempt. And then there are certain accommodations made for law enforcement, as well as pre-existing hunting clubs, shooting preserves, and organizations of that kind. So just take a minute to read it before your next meeting. If you have any questions before then,
I got
feel
one
free to
now.
give me a call. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair. When is it considered to be a nuisance?
Yeah, two different things. Of course, the county has a noise ordinance and we have a nuisance ordinance. This just prohibits the discharge. And so I guess it accomplishes that purpose too, regarding nuisances. But state, I guess you're more concerned maybe with hunting clubs and shooting preserves or just individuals?
Okay. On Sunday, I was sitting on my front porch. There was someone in the neighborhood, they got rid of at least 250 to 300 rounds. Constantly. Bam, 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 bam. Reload, bam, bam, bam. On Sunday. I made a call to 911. Law enforcement came out. Virtually while they were up in that lane, they went back to shooting while the deputy was right there. So I had to sit on my front porch or go in my house and listen to that noise. So when does it become a nuisance?
Do you know what the property is owned?
Residential?
Residential? Well, under this ordinance, it would be prohibited. They couldn't discharge firearms. So in any, and it lists, of course, you folks are familiar with the zoning districts, but under the new ordinance, any zoning district, single-family, two-family, multifamily, mobile home park, office institutional, industrial, all of those, it prohibits the discharge of weapons unless it falls within those exceptions that I just mentioned, firearm, protection of life and property, and certain accommodations made for pre-existing hunting clubs and sports shooting ranges. But those are recognized by state law. So under that scenario, they wouldn't be allowed to discharge firearms unless it was those limited circumstances.
The only little exception there is it would be, if your property's zoned AR1, then it would be allowed in AR1 district.
Yes.
Because those are residential and agricultural districts.
So actually when would 1,000 feet come into play?
It applies to only the agricultural and AR1 districts. So those are, discharge of firearms aren't absolutely prohibited in those two zoning districts, but the other exceptions apply. You can't fire within 1,000 feet of residential or business structure or place of worship, and you couldn't fire on someone else's property or cross property lines without their permission.
Yeah, but let me say this, and I'm not saying it funny. When that bullet comes out the tube of that gun, it's not gonna say, oh, I can't stop.
No, and of course, it requires the discretion of the person who's operating the firearm. They have to know what property lines are, just like any good hunter would, and, control their fire. Now, some other jurisdictions do impose further restrictions. They don't allow nighttime firing unless, there's certain exceptions. I haven't seen any, permitting discharge on Sundays, but they do regulate firearm discharge at certain times of the day. So if you'd like to revise, look at the ordinance, and if you think that's appropriate, we could add that. But it's always difficult. It's a competing
like I said,
interest
if someone
of
wants to go out there
property
and take
rights.
10 rounds and fire it off the aim of the sight in a gun, fine. But when you start going all of those amount of rounds, ridiculous.
Well, I don't disagree. And again, they're competing interests.
And keep in mind, we do have
Property
some
rights.
people out here in Liberty County that still works shift work.
Hmm?
So you're disturbing them also from their
Yes, sir.
night sleep.
And that might be a legitimate violation of the county's noise ordinance. So, if
That's why I asked, when is it?
yeah, our noise ordinance is rather specific, has to reach a certain decibel and has to be for a certain duration, but I think the sheriff's department's familiar with what constitutes a nuisance and what doesn't. Hopefully they could respond and
Did
address
you
the problem.
contact anybody in the sheriff's department while you were writing this?
No, sir, did not. We looked at other jurisdictions and we looked at state law and tried to make it
And the reason why I asked, because law enforcement and what county is, they're gonna be the one to enforce it.
Mhm. Yes, sir. And that's why we try to make it consistent with state law. So the same restrictions, except the 1,000-foot distance requirement, the other exceptions are consistent with state law.
Probably a good idea to run it by the sheriff's office so they can, he can look at it prior to us approving it at our next meeting.
Be happy to.
Mr. Chairman, how you doing, Kelly?
Good, Mr. Jones.
Question, please. I live out in the unincorporated area. Just an example, I have a neighbor that is a detective, and I think he lives on 7.5, 8 acres of land that adjoins mine. And anytime, he's out there practicing zeroing in his gun. I'm sure it's R2, just a nice brick home on it. So I would think that it is R2 without this other split zoning. With this new proposal, he wouldn't be able to practice in his yard firing his firearm.
No, sir, not if it's in one of the residential areas that we discussed, or if it's within 1,000 feet of your residence, for example. Now, there's an exception we make for law enforcement in the performance of their official duties, and we could fine tune that if you're interested, but I think that would only apply to, active duty assignments or training in an approved facility. I don't think a person just at their personal residence, even if they were a law enforcement officer, could discharge their weapon.
And I was just curious, so it don't matter if I had 10 acres, 20 acres, 30 acres, and if it's under that R2, I still wouldn't be able to discharge a firearm on my property.
Yes, sir, that's right. The county tries to do a good job in assigning zoning classifications to property that's appropriate. So if it's zoned R2, then most likely it wouldn't have large acreage of that kind, but there's a possibility it could. More likely it would be agricultural or AR. But an ordinance is sometimes a blunt instrument, but we tried to be as accommodating as we could to property owners, but still make it consistent with compatible uses of the zoning districts.
And I respect, I guess, the property owner's rights and stuff like that, and I guess I'm a gun owner, and I like getting out shooting myself right around the yard, and a bunch of my friends, we down here in the unincorporated, in the sticks, they call it, so it's sort of almost a way of life, to get out in the yard, shoot, practice, plink.
Right.
Just wanted to make no point, ask that question.
We could, and of course, we could always revise the ordinance. I mean, some jurisdictions do restrict the discharge based on distance only. They don't prohibit it outright in zoning districts. So if you folks think that's more appropriate, we can take that tact as well.
I think that would be, Mr. Chairman, I think that would be better if you go, somebody living on a 10-acre piece of property and then somebody living on a half an acre.
Half acre.
They're like really close compared to the guy that lives on 7 or 8 acres. Maybe we should look at it that way.
Sure.
Then by the zoning. Obviously, if you're living on like a quarter acre or half an acre, you probably got some close neighbors
There's close neighbors to you.
in a residential area or subdivision like we just approved. Obviously, you wouldn't want them out there.
And some jurisdictions have done that. They have a distance requirement, like 1,000 feet or so, but they also have exceptions based on acreage. And the acreage varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Some it's 5 acres. Most I've seen it's probably 10 acres. But if you want to give me your comments and let me know what you think is appropriate, we can adjust that, kind of abandon the prohibition based on zoning districks and
Yeah, because a
use
lot-
acreage instead.
A lot of folks may not know what is zoned. I don't know what mine's zoned.
Yep.
I'm interested, excuse me, Commissioner Smith, in what counties our size may have on their ordinances. Because if I'm a very rural, then I could, then nobody's within, 2 miles of me, and I'm like the others, that shouldn't be an issue. But if I'm a populated county, or if I live in city limits, then that probably wouldn't be a good thing, obviously. But I would like to compare notes with those counties who are kind of like ours.
We have, and they're as varied as the jurisdictions. So, like I said,
varies.
most of them have distance requirements of some kind. Others restricted based on platted subdivisions, for example. Others use acreage requirements. So there is no recommended formula or, one size doesn't fit all. But I think from your concerns, I think probably an acreage exception and distance exception probably would work.
But how do
you
you look at that, based on what Commissioner Jones said, and then based on what Commissioner Stevens said? That guy may have been on 10 acres too, but he's having a
He was-
field day.
This was not 10 acres.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
Having a field day, so.
And there are always going to be some circumstances
Yeah.
that aren't addressed by the ordinance that, individual citizens
Yeah.
won't like.
Yeah.
But there's no real effective way to do it. I mean, you have to choose one formula that's consistent and apply it to everyone.
I can imagine, some seniors in the area would have been very upset. The seniors hear all that shooting, they think, oh my gosh,
And that's what I am, a senior citizen.
He's sitting on the front
they'd be
porch.
afraid to go to bed.
Right. And of course, I mentioned some jurisdictions do restrict based on time in addition to distance. They don't allow the discharge after a certain time at night.
Yeah.
So we might want to consider that as well.
Mr. Chair, I would be willing to look at what Commissioner Jones said, if you own X amount of acres,
Yeah.
okay?
Of course, Kelly and I have talked about it, and I've had a lot of discussion with different folks. If you've got 10 acres, well, that could be sufficient if you've got a proper backstop. But
Right.
if you're shooting at 10 acres, let's just say where Commissioner Thrift lives at, if she's got 10 acres, that tells me that there's probably another 2 acres between her and a county line road. So there may not be nothing back there but the woods. Now, I'm running into the same thing you are. The fellow is living in this area and he's shooting into the woods, into property that he don't own. And it actually will come into, sometimes even into one of my, a place where I'm hunting. So you don't never know there. 10 acres may be plenty for the fellow that's going to use common sense and good judgment.
Right.
So I don't know that we can just say 10 acres. I think that, you've got to follow the guidelines of the state, which says you can't shoot so many feet from a state highway or a paved road. And I don't know what it is. We don't have a county ordinance to say how far you can from a county road. And, game wardens or police part of it, but you've got this fellow that's pretty conscious individual that goes out there, zeroes in his gun, it's like Commissioner Jones said, puts it back up, and that's the end of it.
Yeah.
And then you've got somebody that may shoot 300 or 400 rounds out across his 10 acres across the marsh. He's shooting where it's 1,000 yards over there into the marsh. So there's nobody behind him, but who knows when the tide's up and a boat comes by. So, I think the ordinance is going to be something we definitely want to look at. The R2, the AR1, and things like that. There's a lot of people, they'll go and build a house in the 10 or 12 acres, but the fellow that's shooting, he's still going to be shooting to you. In Hinesville right now, and in Savannah, and in Chicago, they shooting down the middle of the street. And some of them's aiming, and some of them are ricocheted bullets and killing people. So that's my.
Well, that was kind of my question. Again, I've never really did that much hunting or shooting or anything like that. Being kind of grew up right over there where I grew up.
Urban.
Yeah, urban.
Urban.
Yeah,
We're in the
I'm more, but I'm just sitting here listening to y'all that do that kind of stuff. A person shoots a gun, if he hit what he's shooting at, the bullet don't go but so far, right? Mm-hmm. So it's obvious we've got a lot of people missing.
They're
Just
randomly
like the free
shooting.
throw. You get it, and sometimes you don't.
Yeah, so you miss it. Yeah, okay.
But it's all right if you miss it because the ball bounces.
Yeah.
This ball don't bounce. It just keeps going.
Keep right on going, okay.
Kelly, find us,
I think I understand what you'd like, and
Okay.
I'll circulate a draft early
Okay.
next week.
Okay.
And you folks take a read and give me a call, and we can discuss it at your next meeting.
like it's always said, the laws aren't made for those who are doing the right thing. It's made for those sometimes who are doing the
understand.
wrong thing, so.
And it's good, the county
protect-
has no
protect
regulations
everybody.
concerning discharge of firearms.
Allow the gun owners to
About
do what
time.
they're doing and then protect the other folk of the world who are just innocent
But Kelly,
next door neighbors.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, you did mention the decibels, like for the noise ordinance. Is that's going to be considered?
It's a separate ordinance. The county does
We
have a
have
noise
that already.
ordinance. So if it should violate the county's noise ordinance, that's a separate way to enforce, a citizen who might be complying with this ordinance, but might be violating the noise ordinance.
a one shot, I think Joey or somebody said something about the duration. A person that's shooting a gun, that's one shot, and it may be over the decibel, but that's not an issue. You would have to sit there and just hold the trigger to the barrel melt.
When I circulate the revised draft, I'll give you a copy of the noise ordinance too, and just highlight what constitutes a
Right,
violation.
but a shot like that wouldn't violate. It may be loud, but it wouldn't violate. Like I said,
Yes, sir, I wouldn't think so.
just have to
But
glue
actually-
your
Have to be
finger,
sustained.
glue your finger to the trigger and just go for it.
Talks about a continuous period
Right.
of time as measured
Okay.
time frame.
But actually, the noise ordinance doesn't kick in until what, 11 o'clock? 11 o'clock?
No, I don't think so.
It can really be in effect anytime, but it specifically says that especially between the hours of X and X, but it's anything that really exceeds that decibel level.
All right, okay.
All right, sir.
Give it a try. See what we come up with.
Thank you.
We have to have a starting point.
Yep.
Yes.
Let's give it a try.
Right, all right, good enough. I'll circulate that next week.
wanna have
The other, the agreement with the hospital regarding EMS, we're going to circulate a draft of that next week.
Next week,
We'll be discussing
okay.
this week. We're hoping to have feedback from the hospital before we circulate it.
Okay.
Once that's done, we will circulate it and discuss it at your next
Okay,
meeting.
Okay,
good enough.
all right.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, folks.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
That's cool, we ain't got no money.
CVB.
What did you say? What did you say the other day? You want to get the Leah Pool version of it real fast, Swift?
You brought some goodies?
Oh, Joey said that. That's all right. That cup right there will be there till next month.
Thank you, Howard.
Thank you.
Hey, Mary, you're on TV now.
I don't care. Hey, look here. Hey, Gary,
Supposed to be at the city council meeting today.
Commissioner Thrift, Commissioner Gillett, at my age, whatever comes off the end of my town, I'm not responsible.
It's for real. It's for real.
We have one of those, Leo. Let's see you updated the.
And before I start, I just wanted to say that my son is in the county work program this summer, and he has enjoyed it so much. He's very excited about tomorrow. And he's enjoyed his boss man back there. He's had a great time. He's learned a lot. He's very excited.
Was he teachable?
Yes, he is
Was
very
trainable?
teachable. Yep, he is. He's actually, I think, got a side job with voter registration now to do some filing after school. So, yeah, he's super excited. He's enjoyed it a lot.
Good.
He likes the dollars. All about the dollars.
It's working, it's working.
So my mid-year update, which way do I have to go this time? I don't know how to operate. Oh, there we go. So our 2020 wrap-up, we did help pass the e-commerce referendum. Our new website also went live. If you've not had a chance to look at that, we would encourage it. Our sign went up. We did get a lot of folks that said they didn't know where we were, but now we have a 12-foot sign, so if they miss us, it's kind of their own fault. We held a COVID-friendly parade. We had our annual staff retreat, and we had 83 new members join the Chamber of Commerce, which was beyond my expectations. We usually do try to get 50, and in a good year, we usually get about 80. But in a COVID year, I would have said we would have gotten far less. But we got 83 new members, and 72% of those were minority-owned and operated businesses. A lot of our new members were non-English speaking as well, which was also surprising to me. And just they wanted the information that we were putting out because we took all those government orders that were coming out and regurgitated them in easy to understand language. Just some pictures from some of the things we did at the end of last year. So we did have our Santa mailbox up, and that gentleman there, that was his first Santa letter. We did stay in touch with all of our historic sites to make sure that they were where we were still here to help them. And we also focus a lot on good photography, which we always have, but we don't always have the time to go take all those pictures. So we try to get good food photos. That's Negril Caribbean Restaurant, which is right on 196. If you've not had a chance to go there, we would encourage you to. January to present, these are some of the activities we've been working on. We did help co-host a Jalen Bale with some other organizations on behalf of Tri-County Protective Agency, which is our battered women and children's shelter. We started a Liberty Loves Teachers program in the schools. Yes, in the schools. But it's not just celebrating the teachers, it's also celebrating the custodial staff, the kitchen staff, all of those folks, paraprofessionals. We helped pass East Lost, which was a good, very good thing. And the chamber hosted the top 45 under 45. We did place an ad in the magazine honoring Dr. Martin Luther King and the anniversary of his death. There was 1 million of these that were printed and distributed throughout the United States. It's also available on a website. It went to a gazillion email addresses. I can't even remember how many, but to market and advertise Dorchester Academy and its place on the Civil Rights Trail, the U.S. Civil Rights Trail. Some of the other things we've worked on so far this year, of course, we did the Random Acts of Kindness Week at the beginning of this year, and Councilwoman Reed with the City of Hinesville is always very generous to help us get to the homeless populations. Her church does a lot of work with those folks. Fort Stewart in coastal Georgia was designated a Great American Defense Community, and that's something that we were proud to be able to work on. Broke ground for the Business Incubator, which will help a lot of folks, and I'm sure you saw the signs and the notices. I know Joey and I have learned a lot. I know I've learned a lot this year about filming. We did have a Tyler Perry film here for several months, well, a couple of months they were here, with some road closures and other things. That movie will come out in 2022, so that's when you can look for that. It did film on the east end of the county and then also right here actually at our office, so a couple blocks away. It was a huge production. It's definitely the biggest one we've ever worked on. We helped with some of the Davion Mitchell celebrations. We celebrated National Travel and Tourism Week, and we always make sure we go visit all of our hoteliers. That's that bottom right-hand picture. Take them little goodies, little treats, just to let them know we're here and we're here for them. If I can get the there we go. The filming, again, A Fork in the Road aired on April the 3rd. We had a commercial that filmed on Cade Creek Road in late April. That was a Peloton commercial. If you know what Peloton exercise equipment is. Tyler Perry Studios filmed here for the first 2 weeks in May, but they were here for months. And The Excursion, we have an episode of that airs in June. We were able to write several grants in the last year. We had a National Historic Preservation Grant of almost $61,000. We've not got the funding yet, but that is for the historic Bacon Fraser House, and that's to help with the continued maintenance of that property. Anybody who's ever owned or been in an old home, you know it takes a lot of maintenance to maintain it, and that is helping with a lot of the grounds maintenance. Those trees were allowed to grow really wild, and we've recently had almost $4,000 worth of work done to maintain them a little better, to try to protect that house. We got a historic preservation grant for the chamber, a historic preservation grant for the CVB. The Georgia Council for the Arts granted the Arts Council $5,000, and then we submitted 2 more grants. We were not funded for either of those, but we are in the process of submitting 4 more. There's lots of grants available right now, so we are doing as many of them as we possibly can. We also have a committee, a Hinesville Downtown Committee, that's working on murals and crosswalk design with the city of Hinesville. That is a huge tourist attraction, believe it or not. People really do like murals, public art. We currently only have 1, but that's something we're trying to ease us all into the art world.
It's very popular now, very popular.
is.
It's a amenity for a whole lot of cities.
It
People
is.
travel to murals.
So we are working on that. We did start a closed Facebook group for our chamber members, and then we were named one of the top 35 best blogs to follow in Georgia in 2021 by FeedSpot, and we're number 14. And one of our chief blog writers is sitting right over there. That's Hunter. Fall of this year, we do have a plethora of things that we will be doing. All of our spring events, of course, being canceled because of COVID still, we have moved to the fall. So we have Leadership Liberty and the Young Adult Liberty Leaders both start this fall. Blues, Brews, and Barbecue, our Chamber Low Country Boil, Chamber Golf Tournament, Food Truck Festival, and the Christmas Parade all in the next couple of months. We also added a Business Expo and Job Fair that's on August the 27th. And these are some of our new marketing campaigns. We did, like I said, focus a lot on good photography while we were able to, and we had the downtime. We have a whole campaign around ladies eating out at restaurants in Liberty County and socializing and have a good time, and that's Miss Kathy Villafane and Miss Karen Bell, who I'm sure you recognize. And then on the right-hand side, that's a baptism that we actually staged several years ago at the Historic Baptismal Trail. But it's a whole series of ads that we have coming out this fall. And just as a reminder, most of what the CVB does, you don't see it here because it doesn't happen here. It's not going to attract tourists here. So we do it in other places. So, and that's what leads me to this. So like the thing on the right, that's a billboard that's in Charleston. to attract day visitors to Liberty County, and that's at the Sunbury Crab Company. And then you've got Miss Willa and Miss Kathy again, that's right here at the Brickwall Cafe. And that's the end of my presentation, unless you have any questions.
Leah, tell, and I would do a poor job, so I'm gonna let you do it. The city of Flemington increased their hotel motel tax.
They voted to increase it several years ago. They did not increase it. It has to be a countywide increase. So
Talk
they-
about that piece. That's what I want you to get to.
So the county would need to adopt the same policy that the city of Flemington did, which is up to 8%. We're currently at 5% for hotel motel tax. That 5% is restricted, where 3 pennies have to go to the local government, which in this case would be you guys, and 2% by state law has to go to the registered DMO, or Destination Marketing Organization, which is the Liberty CVB, or us. And we are taxed with using that just for marketing purposes. We're not allowed to do brick and mortar projects. We're not allowed to maintain the gazebos. We're not allowed to do any of that. If we want to do that, we have to write grants. So the increase, that extra 3%, would go to the registered DMO. 1.5% would have to go to marketing again, but 1.5% could be used for brick and mortar projects. So if you wanted us to redo those gazebos, which the one by the Burger King got completely torn down, any of those kind of projects could be done at that point. With that 1.5% of restricted funds, we wouldn't have to write as many grants or try to find grants to do those kind of projects, or help historic sites directly with their brick and mortar projects. That's something else that could be done. But in order for that to happen, all 3 jurisdictions, the city of Hinesville, city of Flemington, and the county, has to adopt the same thing. And then Representative Williams has to carry it forward for us to the state legislature and have it passed there. So Flemington's the only one at this time who has passed that. I think we have a meeting soon to discuss whether the county might be willing to do the same thing, and if the city of Hinesville would also adopt it. The hoteliers are fine on board with that. We did that a couple years ago.
Okay, so there's a meeting coming up.
Actually, as follow-up to the countywide workshop on the event center, we're having a meeting actually to talk about the event center. At one time, there was a proposal that it be increased and the 1.5% be used to help offset the cost of that construction or some operation thereof. So that's really the meeting.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting the same vibe from this as I am from SPLOS. SPLOS is doing so well, so obviously our community is attracting people. So why not take advantage of those people who, not take advantage, that's not a good word.
No, not take advantage. And it's not the hotel owner's money, it's the person that's coming to visit.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
It's-
yeah, so it's like SPLOS, so,
Yeah.
right, yeah. So there's nothing out of the local people's pockets.
Right, unless you're locally staying in a hotel and having a
Yes, exactly
staycation.
right. But
then
it gets
it's
to
not
help
out of your pocket.
to promote, because we need some things done that we can't get done right now, so that would help us. So whoever takes the move forward, then I hope my commissioners would agree that we would support that when that time comes. Then the city of Hinesville, are they discussed, that's all part of the same meeting?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Well, we just wait for a report back from you guys then.
Especially with no direct opposition, I don't see why.
Okay.
we can't do it. Yeah,
Let's get it done, let's get it done.
I agree.
Any other questions for Leah?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We're gonna take our leave.
Ma'am.
All righty. Enterprise agreement.
Mr. Chris Whiteside is here from Enterprise. He came.
Thank you for being patient, Chris.
Yes, sir. He actually hustled over from Carolina. He had another meeting, so I appreciate it. I'm glad he made it. But I did put in your packets a copy of the master equity lease agreement. There are some writing documents that go along with this, but this is the main agreement. I would tell you this has been provided to county attorney. He's making comments on it. And let Mr. Whiteside kind of go through his short reminder of presentation on the finalization of what would happen through the lease, and we can answer any questions. And Mr. Chairman, what we would like to ask is that the board consider approval subject to changes, final changes being made by the county attorney, and just authorize you to sign.
Okay.
Well, thank you all for having me. Again, I'm Chris Whiteside from Enterprise Fleet Management. So I was here, I guess it's been about a month and a half, 2 months now. But just to kind of give you a quick overview, I believe I can control that. So what I did is working with the county and the sheriff's office, we looked at the fleet for Liberty County. And essentially, this is a profile of what the fleet looks like today. So it's about 165 vehicles roughly if you combine the sheriff vehicles and the county vehicles. One of the things that really sticks out is the age of the vehicles. So you've got about 38% that are 2011 or older. About 50% of the vehicles are over 100,000 miles. 25% of them are over 150,000 miles. Right now, based on y'all's current acquisition trends, you're on about a 14.5-year cycle for vehicles. And then we took a look at what maintenance expenses were. Your average cost is around $102 per vehicle per month. And then there were several vehicles that we noticed could potentially be considered underutilized, so vehicles that are going less than 5,000 miles a year. And as we dug a little deeper, there are several vehicles we found that could be pulled out of the fleet to reduce the overall fleet number. So what we did is we put together a replacement model, so essentially a 10-year projection of what the fleet would look like if we were to shift to a leasing structure. Our recommendation in the first year, and I know this is a busy slide and it's probably kind of small from where y'all are, but on the left-hand side, it's a breakdown of the vehicles we recommended replacing in the first year. So they're broken down by vehicle type. You can see the age is that second column, and then the average mileage on the right is going to be the average mileage for that vehicle class. So there's 54 vehicles in the county that we recommended replacing. The average age is about 15 years, and the average mileage is around 171,000 miles. The next column that's titled 2021, it will essentially be, 2022 budget year, but there's 54 vehicles. Those are broken down by the classes in which the replacements would fall. You can see there's about 7 vehicles that we deemed underutilized or we pulled out of fleet when we discussed with the county. Over on the right-hand side is the breakdown by department of where those vehicles are going, so the number of vehicles going to each department. So it's spread pretty evenly across the county when you look at the county fleet. And then the next slide shows the sheriff replacements. So again, these are the 37 vehicles that we identified with the sheriff's office that should be replaced first. So there's a breakdown again on the left of the type, the average age and average mileage. So the average age is about 9.5 years. Average mileage is about 144,000. There's a couple that you'll see are showing a little bit lower mileage when you look at the average annual miles. Those were pulled based on age. They were significantly aged. One's a passenger van and then one's a smaller sedan. And then over on the right-hand side, you can see what the replacements would look like. So we're targeting 13 full-size sedans, a passenger or transport van, and then the breakdown between the SUVs and the pickup trucks as well. So this is a summary of what the replacements would look like for the county and the sheriff. There's just 2 more slides. So this slide is taking a look at the county vehicles. So essentially what it's doing is pulling all vehicles for the county and putting them into a 10-year replacement model and showing what that would look like. The box down at the bottom, the average annual lease cost with equity is what your average annual cost will be when you take into account the resale of the vehicles. So that's taken into account the equity from the sale of your current vehicles, and then the equity from the sale of the leased vehicles through Enterprise. You'll see some reductions on the maintenance and fuel side, which will ultimately lead to a lower fleet budget. Currently projecting around $1.3 million in savings over a 10-year period from a budget standpoint. And a lot of it comes from operating newer, more efficient vehicles. So that's where a lot of your maintenance costs are going to come from. You're reducing the age of your fleet drastically. The second slide is looks very similar, but this is the sheriff vehicles. So again, you can see the vehicles replaced in the first year is 37, so that matches up with what we showed on that previous slide. Again, the savings is not quite as great on the sheriff side because there is a lot of equipment that goes into sheriff vehicles, as y'all know. But you can see your average annual cost is around $307,000 when you take into account the actual lease cost and then the proceeds from the resale of the vehicles. So that's kind of a quick overview of it. I know it's obviously a busy slide and a lot of information to kind of put out there for you, but it really has become a best practice for a lot of the government entities that we partner with. We partner with entities across the country to help with vehicle replacement. So we acquire vehicles on your behalf directly from the manufacturers with government pricing and help facilitate the whole process.
Can you remind us again of some of those who you serve now that are kind of in our area?
Yeah, so we work with City of Savannah, Effingham County, St. Mary's, Tybee Island, Walthourville, Pembroke, There's several other across Georgia. Those are ones that are pretty close to here.
Okay. All right. Can we hear from staff?
I commend the commission for looking at it because it's been a challenge for many years to try to keep the fleet up. And I know we've looked at this one time before, and now in your current budget, you've allocated the funds to do that, to get into a good fleet rotation. And I believe it'll put not only the Sheriff's Department, but everybody else in a more efficient and safe vehicle, and will significantly reduce your costs over 10 years. I do think that as far as the sale value goes, we've been cautious to estimate those returns. I think that given the limited availability of vehicles right now, we'll probably see some better returns on the used market even. And so, yes, sir, with your permission, I think staff's pretty comfortable. I apologize to Mr. Whiteside for Major Kirkendall and I and other staff working so hard over the last 90 days, but we've massaged it heavily and massaged it again, so.
Major Kirkendall, you're here. We'll allow you to address it if you want to, sir. We hear from you. Since you're here, you've been patient too to wait this whole time. So.
Just remember, you're on TV now, Bill.
I'll do my best. If I could just add one thing. The fleet of any law enforcement agency was one of our most valuable assets other than our employees. And getting there safely and expeditiously is an ongoing problem. In Hinesville, we're managing over 100 vehicles in the vehicle fleet, and we looked at this program, and we've made some recommendations. Over here, once again, I mean, the savings of $1.9 million over 10 years, that's substantial. That's not anything to scoff at. So the value that this program adds to us from the Sheriff's Department side, having a company come in, professional organization, and manage our fleet takes one huge burden off of our plates. We will actually plan on seeing some more returns because we have a fleet manager on staff now. And he actually looks at this equipment. He can change equipment in and out and save every penny that we possibly can moving forward. So some of the equipment costs, we can actually visualize seeing some more savings there as well. But it's a great program. We feel like, it's best for Liberty County. It's actually a great program.
Commissioners, you heard it.
Bill, let me ask you a question on this, and Joey too, because you're, now, in this situation, with your direct reports, which would be, I guess, all your department heads, and Bill, the folks that would work there with the Sheriff's Department, let's just say the car is tore up, you don't want to hear about it. If it's if it's Bill's group, you handle that. If it tears up, if it's a problem, then you communicate with whoever those folks are with Enterprise. And then when it gets time to trade it in, y'all will be making that decision too, right?
Yes, sir, and we've been in close contact with Chris throughout the process, and that was one of our questions we came, because typically, if we have a vehicle that gets totaled through the year, we can't immediately replace that vehicle. If funds are not budgeted, they're not there. Under a lease program, we can immediately replace that vehicle and get it back into the line of vehicles. So overall, it's going to be a great asset for us.
And the other thing is the mileage that you brought up. Do you have a estimated mileage that you have? Let's just say you figure it in Liberty County, you know what your square miles are in Liberty County, but I know there's a lot of people now, they drive them to wherever they live at. And then you have to take that in consideration too. When you take that from if individual drives 2 counties over, how do you work that, Bill? I mean, he comes back into the county, he's 10-8 and he goes to work. I understand that, but what during that, if it's a 20-mile commute to the county line, where are we going to be on that situation right there? Do you just say that's part of it, that's benefit hours, or that's a benefit for the employee, or?
We actually did an analysis for the city of Hinesville when we switched over to the take-home car program. And the furthest that anyone was driving a car was 26 miles.
Right.
And strangely, our fuel consumption went down. Our mileage on the vehicles was increasing at a rate that was less than previous to the program. And really, we even got with finance to say, well, how are we saving money on fuel when everybody has a take-home car? But what we're seeing is those cars, especially the older cars that are using more fuel, are being driven less. because the average employee is working 7 out of 14 days. So those cars are now being set aside instead of being hot seated, as we call it in law enforcement, and constantly on that rotation. We're getting longer life out of the vehicles, more economy, and the maintenance costs are greatly reduced. So overall, your fleet program, the overall charge for that program is in fact greatly reduced because we have one car per person, and it's a take-home car. It actually saves money.
Well, yeah, I understand. We did the same thing at Georgia Power. I mean, you know, you'd have the vehicles, and I guess Commissioner Thrift, and they may do it at EMC, but, you know, if that one individual's driving it, he's gonna know if he hears a clunking noise, what it might be or it may not be. But, I mean, that'll be the decision that you two will work out, that make sure that all of that's, when it's time to, if it's got, one's got 25,000 miles on it more than the other, and you're gonna say, all right, we need to, you know, we need to go ahead and get this one swapped out, and then you just communicate with this gentleman right here, and you get one coming in. Maintenance will be done at,
Same way it's been done now,
through
county shop.
first vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What, and the vehicles are all Dodges or Fords or?
No, so it's, so really what we do is we will sit down with the county, and decide what the best vehicle with the lowest total cost of ownership is. We evaluate, typically on the government side, it's gonna be Chevy, Ford, and Chrysler, or Stellantis is what they call themselves now, which is Dodge and Ram. So we're gonna look at those three big manufacturers, and we request government incentives for each one to determine what the best value is. A lot of it now is gonna vary a little bit on availability, since, you know, as y'all mentioned, with the dealerships, there's not a lot of vehicles out there, so it does vary a little by availability, but it'll be a mix of the big three.
So then you won't be carrying it to the Ford place at Hinesville if it, I guess it'd be under warranty, or you would do that?
Warranty would remain the same, yes, sir.
What did you drive here?
A Chevy.
Okay.
Don't start.
You hear that? He didn't even drive what he wanted to sell. Now that right there, boy.
It is at least a truck. They did give us trucks. So I'll take that.
No, I mean, we always had good luck with them, but I mean, you know, I don't know what this y'all span was. I think 7 years, we, you know, had to turn them loose. Of course, it's like you said, the engine is running all the time on them, but,
Yeah, the
you know,
questions.
I agree with, you know, what Joey's saying there.
Commissioner Jones, want to get,
One question, well, I guess a point of emphasis. I know we've been working on this for a couple of months now, and we've had the presentation before. Something I guess that I've been slightly disappointed by is I haven't heard anything out of any of these meetings we've had or conversations about this, that we haven't said anything about any eco-friendly vehicles, electric vehicles, or things that are environmentally friendly. We controlling a big fleet like this, and I know it's a conversation that's going on around the world about trying to go green, you know, and the effects that it has to the environment. I would have thought that we would have looked into maybe exploring part of our fleet, maybe not the sheriff's department because of the different demand that their cars have, maybe versus some of the other departments that may not put as much mileage or pressure, I guess to say, on their vehicles, that we would at least entertain looking into the cost efficiency versus the full gas fleet, or maybe looking into a part of our fleet being electric cars or hybrid cars. So I guess I could say I was disappointed that we hadn't touched that subject in this conversation, and I don't even know if you offer those cars, but
Yeah, absolutely. So that, you know, and the good thing is when you partner with Enterprise on even this, you know, what we proposed currently, Enterprise is one of the foremost leaders in providing electric vehicles, and we are on the ground floor. Enterprise manages a fleet of several million vehicles. So anything when we look at electric vehicles, hybrid vehicles, alternative fuel vehicles, you definitely have experts on your team with Enterprise. We're partnering with a lot of different cities to look at electric and hybrid vehicles, and when we evaluate total cost of ownership, fuel economy is a huge part of it. We, from what we have seen is over the next couple years, electric vehicles especially, and then more hybrid options are definitely starting to have a place in government fleets. For example, City of Savannah, we just partnered with, took advantage of a huge green initiative, and they're getting several electric and hybrid vehicles through Enterprise. And that is something we can absolutely explore, what the best option is for the county moving forward. We're happy to assist with that.
I bring that up, Mr. Chairman, because I know some of the vehicles that we use, they parked at the office. They don't go home with, say, the officers. They're not getting 200,000 miles on them a year. They may be just used right in around town. It's not a big radius. And say not the entire fleet, but maybe a fourth, a tenth of the fleet, something to say that we did try to touch that footprint a little bit to explore, to see maybe it's something that we would look into more in the future. Just something I wanted to throw out since I haven't heard us discuss that yet.
I like that idea, and I was hoping he was gonna bring up the City of Savannah initiative, because that was something new that they just started, so I think we could take some learning off of that, and especially as vehicles ramp back up for production, more available, the pricing is gonna get better, but we could start looking at that next year, as a matter of fact, and just say, look, over the life of the agreement that is hoped to go on for several years, let's start looking at phasing some things in and trying that. I really think there'll be some grants that'll be available too, to help us along that way, for whether it's electric charging stations or whatever it may be, to go with those vehicles, so.
And how long is this agreement that we considering? How long is it supposed to be?
I think the initial agreement is 8 years, is that correct?
So every vehicle is set up on its own term. The model that we showed is based on a 10-year model, but there's every vehicle is set on its own individual term. Typically, they are a 5-year term on a vehicle typically, but some will be cycled sooner than that, so they may not go all the way to term based on resale, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so the initial agreement with Enterprise is expected to be over a 10-year term, which is where all the basis is, but each year, and it goes back to something Commissioner Walden said, each year you sit down and relook at everything and see what the year behind has held and what the year ahead has held, and we have the opportunity to say, okay, we were gonna replace vehicle X in whatever year, may choose to substitute that for some other vehicle, and look at those initiatives. That flexibility's there. Absolutely. Flexibility's absolutely.
Yeah, you can buy Chevrolets.
He asked me the other day, one of those, you're not gonna be disappointed if we don't buy Fords, are you? And I said, no, it's whatever comes up. So,
Best deal.
tell me a little bit about that.
We do see when we start looking at alternative fuel vehicles too, obviously Chevy or GM and Ford are making a big push there, and even Chrysler, but we see a lot of, Nissan, Toyota, things like that coming into the alternative fuel space. So we'll evaluate it all and absolutely provide y'all with the best, recommendation.
Well, Bill is the expert on them. I mean,
Yeah, it's good to have him
yeah,
to speak that way, sir. Yes.
I don't believe he's ever tore any up.
All right,
All right,
Chair, entertain a motion.
Chair. Make
Thank
that
you.
motion that we enter in this agreement with Enterprise.
Second.
Motion and second, with the comments that Commissioner Jones made, that we start looking into
That we buy all
hybrid and
Chevrolet.
electric when that time comes. That's a good catch. That's a good catch. Good catch. All right. All in favor, raise your right hand, please. Those opposed? All right. Let's do business.
Thank you.
Sir, thank y'all.
You remember our conversation?
Absolutely, yes.
All right, sir. Thank you.
All right, y'all be good.
Mr. Brown, announcements?
Nothing major, sir. Just to let you know, there will be a bunch of agreements for y'all to review at the next meeting related to that EMS transition, medical director agreement, a lot of things that are required by law. So we're trying to have those to you, trying to get Mr. Davis to get those to you ahead of time.
How are we doing with the medical director position? Not the medical director, the director position.
We have a meeting tomorrow afternoon.
Okay,
Hopefully, wrap that up.
okay. All right, sir. You got something tomorrow, sir?
Yes, sir. We are having our graduation for our summer youth employment program, and as we mentioned, we had some dynamic young people this year. The official ceremony that we want to invite you to is at 11, but if you care to come to the presentations, which will start 8:15 to 9:30, you're more than welcome to attend. And we'd love to have all the commissioners, assist Chairman Lovett as out the certificates to the young people.
What time is that?
That portion will start at 11.
Commissioner, you had something?
Well, I had a question for Joey. Joey, I was just looking at when LCPC was presenting this Adler Grove subdivision, and I wrote down a question. You know, they do talk about HOAs. Every development, every subdivision has a HOA, and we know how they work. But are HOAs, I know, you know, after 5 or 6 years, you're gonna have the second owner, you know, somebody gonna move out, they're gonna start renting. And at some point, we end up doing what the HOA was designed to do, or what they used to do. Are HOAs, is there some kind of time, you know, some kind of time where, you know, you establish an HOA and it goes for, you know, the duration? Because if they don't, then Clinton and his guys and all of us have to, you know, you look at those retention ponds and those ponds, and the HOA right now, they're gonna maintain them. You know, Zekman would inspect them, and, you know, they'll go in there, they'll mow around it or whatever. But in 7 years, no one is there. You got the third owner living in the house, and his backyard backs up to that pond, and he wanted it cut because there's snakes out there and this and that and the other. And Clinton has to go in there and do that. So HOA, when it's written, it's not really said that, you know, it's going to be for a timeline. It's just something new. I mean, it's something good to say you got.
It is really, and I'm not, Mr. Moses certainly chime in, he's got a lot of experience too, but I'm not aware of any legal requirement for continuality of an HOA. It is exactly as you described. I can ask Kelly what teeth legally, if there is anything, that can go into those creations, to be sure of. I'd ask him about that. I do know if there's covenants as part of an HOA, those have to be renewed. If they fail to be renewed, I think it's like every 10 years.
10 years.
12 years, then they dissolve.
Yeah, because I know my other job, we're doing a lot of work where they used to have an HOA.
I'll be glad to ask that.
After 10 years?
Yeah, after 10 years, what I've always heard too, yeah.
Yeah.
You just
know,
assume.
And, you know, after 10 years, that could be it, but we're gonna have it forever after that.
You will.
Mr. Chairman, one more thing, and I know we've talked about it in here before, and Commissioner Stevens brought it up, and Trent did, about our Islands Highway. I don't know if y'all read the article about the situation that happened at Tybee the other night, where a young girl
Struck by
got
lightning.
by lightning. There was no access to get in or out but one way. They couldn't get in with a helicopter because of the wind and things like that. We have talked about having that widened or whatever. I personally had talked with Buddy Carter and mentioned it to him, I guess 3 or 4 years ago. And he said, well, that's something that we need to be looking at because of access, just getting in and out the coast. Now, 20 years or how many years it was that was a state route, you know, and now it's a county route. So it's going to fall back to us, and I think we probably need to be looking at some type of a letter that's saying, please help. I mean, we don't have a port down there, but it's filling up every day. And there's just, the road is narrow, boats are getting wider, and I think we need to try to see if we can get some help to, I mean, it's a safety concern, any way you look at it. Even the overpass over 95 is just as bad. So I think.
All of the above.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's time for us to approach him, and if he says no, then it's no. But if we could get some money on it, we need to do something down there. It's I hate to go down there, but Commissioner Gillard calls me every Friday morning.
Oh, really?
He hates to go down there. He hates to go down there.
What time?
Every Friday morning,
I ain't gonna
but
be able to make it tomorrow. Make it tomorrow.
can we get a letter? I mean, we could all sign it or do whatever, I don't care,
At least a try.
the easiest thing for us to do is nothing, and I think that we need to just move forward with it. I mean, send it to our senators and our representative, but, I mean, you know, he's the first
That's right.
congressional district congressman, so let's just ask. I mean, I'm tired of seeing things go to Tybee, Wilmington Island, the ports, you know, I think we need to be looking out. I don't need to look at it. I mean, just sign it. I mean,
Yeah. Because I know we've been very verbal about the bridge at 95, you know, not as much as we have been about doing something about Island Highway, but yeah, that's what I have to say. You know, it takes a while for the wheels of government to,
well,
turn.
I know it does, but every time I turn around, they're down there getting their picture taken, you know, with them daggone cranes unloading containers.
which is a good thing. It helps us too, but you're right, we need to.
Well, when we left the first district, we went to, came back up and went into Bryan County. And, I mean, I've never even been back there. Eddie told me, I had no idea where we were going, but man, they got all kind of.
The new exit.
All kind of
Yeah.
roads and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But all those things, because we've done our homework, has been on the dockets for a while, so you're right, we don't ever stop, we'll never get there.
Well, right, I
Never
mean,
get there.
and I took it upon myself just to mention it to him, and it was, at one time, he had a town hall meeting on the telephone, and I just told him it.
Yeah.
Of course, you know, they'll forget you.
Because the new
We
exit
can
at,
remind him.
new exit at Bryan County was on the dockets for at least 10 years, I know. Yeah.
You talking about the
The
interchange?
new one they have, yeah.
Well, they had it when the young lady left the Development Authority in Hinesville.
Yeah.
It didn't take long for her to get it over there and get some rocks moved. So,
I think there may have been a motion before she got over there. Yes, sir.
Just got a couple of things on. We talked about it at our retreat, but we hadn't gotten any action. I know you've been busy. County attorney has been busy, I think. We talked about our charter. It's way out.
the what?
The charter for the county. Also, keep in mind, that charter calls for a clerk. We don't have a clerk. The last clerk was Ms. Faye.
We actually had one for a short period of time after that.
That was big.
Deanna, I can't remember last.
Somebody.
But also, these things need to be looked at. And how can we get to it? I don't know, but it does need to be looked at. You know, we are operating, but we're not operating within the parameters that I think that we should be.
We could, can we change the charter? I mean, if we need a clerk,
have
that's
to
one
have a
thing. If we don't
clerk.
need one,
Got
let's
an
do away
assistant,
with it.
executive.
All things being fair, he is gonna focus, I hope, on the EMS transition between now and
Oh, yeah.
And I say that nicely, hopefully after that first transition, I know from our aspect, what else is that going, we can try to get that back on the
Where's our I mean, the charter, where's, have you got a copy of it? Can you email it? Yeah, let me read it.
And also, Mr. Brown, we need to go back and look at the animal law. Dog, cats, whatever, rules and regulations. I think you know what I'm talking about. And where are we with the code enforcement officer?
Well, we've got, let me back, okay, so on the animal thing, we just redid those. And y'all modified those, it's probably been less than a year ago.
Okay, so the situation that you probably familiar with, that would come under the code enforcement?
Remember which situation?
The one with a bunch of dogs?
Well, that's actually, as far as having so many dogs at your home.
In a subdivision?
Yeah,
Over 20 of them?
Yeah, it's already in there. It's already in our code, got a code.
20 animals.
That says you can't have
them to enforce it?
It's already been, yes, he's already been cited and hit the magistrate. That one.
So it has made it up to that stop point again.
Magistrate.
We can only do on our side. So, yes, sir, we have gone ahead and cited.
But has the owner made any adjustments since he's been cited? No? I was hoping on their own they would,
I don't think he has no intention.
really? Okay.
But, I mean, for the smell that the neighbors out there have to endure.
Right.
And the barking and all time of night, while he's breeding dogs and everything else. So,
Actually, a couple of sites, there's a couple of sites on that for the magistrate court case. One was a violation of the animal ordinance there for the, how many dogs, and the other was, selling dogs at that location. So he's actually got a website that he will sell by. He was cited for both of those.
Wow.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, you entertain a motion to adjourn?
So, second?
Second.
All in favor? Adjourned. Thank you. Good meeting.
All right.